just worried that. So we're live now. Let's give it a little bit of time for some people to come in, but check if your comments are open.
Let me see.
Like if you go on your YouTube channel and then.
Oh yeah, look at the live, huh? Let me see.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll see. And if I forgot to turn on comments or something, it's totally cool. Like even if it's just on your channel, it's totally cool. This is your brewery, man. I just realized you're in your brewery.
Yeah, I don't think my comments are turned on. Live chat isn't turned on. Ooh, can you see yours on your YouTube if your comments are on?
Let me look at it real quickly. This is I see that you're live. Oh yeah, and I guess I'm live too.
Yeah, it's on your channel already too.
Yeah, it is. Wow, this is trippy. This is really trippy, man. It looks like my comments are on. Let me look at this.
Somebody just on my StreamYard, I see some comments coming through. Gilgash. Are you on Jerry's channel or are you on my channel? Which channel are you coming on?
Yeah, let us know. Let us know, Gilgash. Wow, this is pretty cool.
All right, so here we go. Live. I had this on I did a live stream on Saturday, and I had the same problem. We all had the same problem where when you go through StreamYard, the software that I'm using, it's by default turned the comments off. Yeah, but so so you've got some people coming through on your channel.
Interesting, cool. So, oh, look at this. So it actually has. I'm just in my back end, just looking at what I can turn on and stuff like that.
Yeah. Whoever's on my channel, I'm trying to figure out how to get my comments going. So
I see.
This is literally a last minute thing we just decided to do.
Yeah, exactly. This is cool, man. I love spontaneity. I haven't done a spontaneous talk like this in a very long time. In general, I haven't really done much on this channel just because I got other channels I'm working on. So it's cool, man. If I'm gonna do stuff in the future, I definitely want to do stuff like this.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. It'd just be so much better if I could get this working. Let's see here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. Okay, I think I've almost got it.
Nice.
You were saying you think your channel is more controversial than mine? Like you got some.
Oh yeah, I've definitely explored more controversial stuff. Like I've interviewed conspiracy theorists. I've explored men's rights, MGTOW, stuff like that. That is like counter mainstream. So I think this channel, honestly, there's probably a sunk cost bias on my channel, and there's going to be a time and a place where I'm going to either move this channel onto a different platform or just let it go because I spread myself too thin. I explored too much stuff, and there's just too much in my history to be like, look at all the stuff he's explored. Ha ha ha! Demonetize him.
Yeah, you know what? There needs to be an alternative for sure. Like as soon as you want to explore certain topics, it really messes you up. And then, like you said, you have the history on your channel too, where all of a sudden the censorship is going to become a lot more sensitive. And it doesn't even need to be this stuff, because you know what? The China stuff is pretty sensitive too. There were a lot of people who were talking about China who got blocked off of YouTube, who got blocked off of Twitter. And it's a really interesting thing because they did this whole thing before. They had that the purge of the Chinese bots on Twitter. I don't know if you remember that, like thousands.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they said that they purged Chinese bots, and I knew a lot of those people personally. Like they were foreigners, they were people who just were against like the Hong Kong protests. And the thing is we have a precedent for this. We did this before. They did this when they said they were removing all of these Russian bots off of the internet too. And then afterwards, the review afterwards was they couldn't identify a single one as a bot. Like one was a pensioner in England or something like that. One was like they were removing real people who were just talking about things that they didn't want them to talk about. So it does happen, and they really got to come up with some sort of an alternative platform to YouTube, I think.
Yeah, there's one called UGEtube. But I think that one unfortunately has its own problems too. So, yeah, there's going to be, unfortunately, issues with all these platforms, like even BitChute and Minds. I've gone on it, and it just unfortunately just seems like when you force people off the platform, the first people that leave are going to be the most extreme. So
absolutely.
And it's like, so by censoring, you're almost creating more and more extremists. I made a video on this a while ago talking about it. I'm like, I found out that this channel was not searchable on Google. And I was like, dude, I don't think I'm that extreme. I mean, I like thinking about issues and talking to people, but I don't think I'm like, my personal views are any too extreme. But you know
what, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. So first of all, I've had that experience too. I've had the experience with Twitter where I was shadow banned, so my stuff wasn't searchable anymore. I couldn't even search my own old tweets. Like when I was looking for an old tweet, I would keyword search myself, and it's completely unindexed. But in terms of what you said about when they do censorship like this, you create even more extremists. I've seen this firsthand. So, like, for example, there's a guy in England named Tommy Robinson, and he's really kind of anti-Islam and stuff like that. And his group is kind of like far right. And then they got blocked off of everything. They got blocked off of Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and then they created their own Telegram group. And if you go in there, it's just gotten really scary because now it's an echo chamber. Their ideas aren't being challenged. And there's a really good debate on this by the Oxford Union called about deplatforming, about the idea of whether it should be deplatformed or not. And there was a guy named Nick Griffin who was a Holocaust denier, and they wanted to deplatform him way back when he was going to go on BBC, a BBC show. And a lot of people protested. A lot of Jewish people protested, said, "Why are you bringing this person online?" He was the leader of the BNP party. And what he did was he went on the show, and when he had his ideas challenged by other people who don't agree with him, he lost all of his support. He lost his last 2 seats in the parliament, and his support went down because his followers had a chance to see him interact with other people who don't share that same idea. And so when you deplatform people and they go into their echo chambers and they're not on the same platforms anymore, it is dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. You give them the legitimacy. It's like, oh, look, I was right all along. You see, they see me as a threat, right? Even if that wasn't the purpose, it just gives them extra kind of things to say. Yeah, well, see, I was right all along, even if they were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing that's going on. But yeah, this is pretty cool. How many people you got on your chat? I got 100. I got 155. Hello to everybody who's joining.
I'm pretty low. I usually, when I go live, I'm lucky if I have like 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't. There's something about notifications. Most of my subscribers, even though I have like 44,000, most of them don't get notifications when I upload anymore. So, unfortunately, really? This channel is just not on the good side of YouTube, which, it is what it is. I mean, it opens up opportunities. I just work on other stuff and stuff like that. So. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you've got the time zone is probably working at the time that we're on now too, because I've got a lot of viewers from over here. And
that's very true. Yeah, if I went live a little earlier, probably more. But yeah.
Yeah. So just to explain to the guys who have tuned into my channel, we just decided randomly to just start up a live chat. We've been connected for just like not too long, like a couple months or something like that, but we've never actually spoken face to face. This is the first time we spoke. So you've got a YouTube channel. You do. I like some of the videos you do of disseminating, taking apart those like Chinese dating shows and stuff like that. Yeah, those are good. Yeah. But what are you going to be doing on your new channels and stuff like that?
So I teach Chinese on one of my channels. So if you search Jerry Teaches Chinese, that's one of my channels. And then I have another channel I just started called Jerry Learns Business. So I'm trying to talk to more entrepreneurs, trying to talk to more people that I can learn about the business culture, because I didn't go to business school. And even though I'm kind of an entrepreneur, right? So my thought is there's a lot of holes in kind of my knowledge, real world applications, because we all know schools. I mean, what did they really teach you? So that's the channel. And of course I got my big channel, the martial arts channel. So those
I
are some
didn't
of
even
the.
know about that.
Yeah, I have a channel called Fight Commentary Breakdowns. It's a really big martial arts channel. So, that channel is just sticking to the rules. That channel is just, if there's one channel that's going to go viral, that's that channel. And it's cool because, this channel can be like my channel to like push the rules a little bit, right? We need to separate the brands a little bit. And that's one thing I learned early. And I think that's another reason why, even though this channel of mine's a little bit censored, it's not really anything that affects me because I've got other channels that,
That's good to diversify. I've been kind of thinking about the same thing because I do like a lot of political stuff. I talk about the Hong Kong protests and things like that. And then I'll have a video of a weekend getaway, or I'll have yesterday I uploaded a video of making how I make my tea. And it's kind of like a mishmash of things. And I've been playing with the same idea, whether I should really separate it into separate channels, even from a risk mitigation point of view. Like you said, if all of a sudden one of the channels starts getting censored or something like that, might not be a bad idea.
Yeah. And I think just for me, I always have very different interests. So for me, when I started my YouTube channel, I had another channel before this channel, and that channel was all about doing pranks. So I already had a channel that's completely different. And when I started this channel, I was like, well, this is just my rant channel. And then when I started the Fight Commentary channel, I was like, well, let's do a channel just on martial arts. I always knew I was going to separate the brands. The kind of mitigating risk thing came later because I was like, whoa, but it just happened to work out. So I'm not that smart. I didn't plan this. It just happened that I was just really distracted, had a lot of interest. And then, some of the channels are cool and other channels got me in a little bit. I mean, it's not even trouble. I mean, I don't even consider this getting in trouble. It's just, I understand you're trying to sell ads, right? And you don't want to sell ads to companies that might feel like, oh, this person, no, right? So.
Well, yeah, I think it goes further than that, though, because that's one thing. You can understand that, okay, certain advertisers don't want their ads showing up on certain content. Mm-hmm. But the whole system, the whole ecosystem goes further than that. Like I said, with Twitter, they have a shadow ban feature where they don't allow other people to see certain tweets. And it's the really weird thing because I get into a lot of debates with people about, China versus the West and stuff like that. And people always come to the debate with this idea that China has censorship and they don't. And it's totally not true. I mean, even like the big one that really opened my eyes too was other than just this removing of all these so-called Chinese bots who are actually real people, but was when, when that thing happened when Soleimani was killed in Iraq, there was an airstrike. Yeah,
yes, that's right.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, Facebook actually came out with a statement that said to comply with U.S. sanctions, they're going to be removing anybody who's, from Iran or something like that, or who even empathizes with them. Even sympathizes with them. I can't remember the exact word. And it's like, well, hold on a second. And then a really funny thing happened was there was a Syrian ambassador who got banned off of Twitter because he was telling the story of because almost nobody in the West knows that Soleimani was on his way to a peace mission with Saudi Arabia. That was not reported. And when the Syrian ambassador started talking about it on Twitter, he was banned. And so what he did was he moved to Weibo and he started posting in Weibo on Chinese about what he wanted to say. And then an American ambassador started arguing with him on Weibo in Chinese. So all of a sudden, China, Weibo, became the most uncensored place in the world to have a political discussion on this topic. And if that's not irony, I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head, which is censorship happens everywhere, right? It just interests are different. So different places, there'll be different types of censorship. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you're in California, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm in LA.
What's the situation like on the ground there now? Like in terms of this whole pandemic, what's going on? Like are businesses opening? Are people still worried? Or like what's going
on? Businesses are slowly opening up, but I think the damage is kind of already done. And then people are still very worried. I think they're still, even though you can go out if you have a mask and stuff like that. And so I think there's like two groups of people, right? There's one group of people who's like not taking a risk at all. Let's just stay home. Let's still keep distance. There's another group of people who are kind of like, build herd immunity. I'm just going to go out. I'm not even going to wear a mask. So like when you walk outside, you see people like not wearing masks. Their kids are not wearing masks. And then there's a third group of people, of course, who are like, okay, I'll just follow the rules. I'll just go out, I'll wear a mask, make everyone feel comfortable. But yeah, it's definitely still a mess. And what was really interesting was, I live right by the beach. I wish it was still light. I could show you, but the beach is right there. And
nice.
They blocked off access to the beach. So they put these chain link fences, or I don't know what they're called, the fences that have like the whatever they're called, but they put the fences up to block us from going into the park and going to the beach. And yeah, it felt like we're in a concentration camp. It was so weird because you could like see the beach. You couldn't walk or go to the beach. Just the weirdest feeling. And I think the honest truth is that if they didn't open up, they opened up I think 2 weeks ago, I believe. They didn't open up the parks and didn't open up the beach. I think probably people would have rioted. I mean, it was getting close. Like people were already protesting. So yeah, but still, I just don't know how LA or Santa Monica, where I live, is ever really going to be the same again. So it
is really worrying. It is really worrying what's going on. I mean, from the economy point of view too, there's so many people applying for unemployment. I've got a cousin in New Jersey. She's been unemployed for months now, no work, and she can't even reach the unemployment department. She can't even reach anybody on the line. And it must be so scary for so many people. Like, what's going to happen? How long is it going to take the economy? I mean, our parents didn't go through anything like this. This is like a once in every 3 lifetime kind of thing we're going through.
Yeah. And this is the first time it's ever worldwide, right? That's the thing. It's the first time it's ever worldwide.
Yeah. Because, in West Africa, you had Ebola, you had stuff like that. I mean, H1N1 spread around the world, but it was nothing like this kind of intensity and this kind of, impact. But it's scary from an economic point of view.
Yeah. How is Shenzhen now?
It's kind of getting back to normal. My bar's open. Our business is starting to get back to normal. My eldest son went back to school. When he goes to school, before he went to school, all of the kids needed to get COVID-19 tests. Every day he goes into school, he goes through this. There's these different lines based on your height, and there's this machine that looks at you, and you stand quickly. You stand for a moment, and it says "Jinchang," or he's only heard Jinchang. He hasn't heard anybody where it says, "No, you got a flu, you got a virus, or a fever." But they check everybody's temperature. The cafeterias, when they're eating, they've got these plexiglass things between them. The school gives them 3 free masks a day. So there's still it's not normal. Like there's life has changed. Yeah. But in terms of people going back to school, people going back to work, that piece is normal. There's traffic jams on the street as usual in Shenzhen again. But there's a healthy concern about a possible second wave. Everybody's very aware of that. It's not like you don't have people here that are really saying or really have ever said it's just a flu, it'll go away in the summer. Not to name any names for anybody who said that, but here it's the opposite. They're actually saying, we've got to be vigilant. There's a chance this is going to come back. I think with the Spanish flu also, incorrectly named Spanish flu, that whatever you want to call it. It was the second wave that really got people too. So it's something to still be concerned about.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny you mentioned that traffic's still jammed, because the moment stuff started slowly opening up starting 2 weeks ago, the smog came back in LA, and now looking out at the beach towards the Malibu direction, it's all smog again. I'm like, oh, that's the one thing I did not miss, man.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, you think of all the worldwide, all of the air travel that stopped, all the industry that stopped. Like, this is like a breathing moment for the earth, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, we've had pretty good weather here, though. It's really getting warm here too. Is it pretty warm where you are now already?
It's really funny because it kind of got a little cold the past during the lockdown. It was kind of like cold here, even though in LA it's normally never cold. So I remember when the lockdown first happened and the temperature was going cold. I'm like, man, people are just gonna get sick just because people are not used to cold weather here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we got to work. We anybody who all of a sudden like feels a little bit uncomfortable, has a cough, or gets a little bit of a cold, you freak out now. Even though it's quite characteristic when the weather's changing, you're going to pick up some stuff. But obviously, everybody's really worried about that now. But so things are starting to get back to normal there. You were, how long have you been there? But you were originally from China, and then you moved there, or you were born in the U.S.?
So I took 2 trips. I lived in Chicago for 3.5 years. So from when I was 4 to when I was about 7. And then I was in China for about 2.5 years. So I went to school in China for 2.5 years. And then I went back to America. So I lived in the DC area for about 8 years. And then I went to school up in Philly.
Oh, yeah.
College up in Philly. So, and I've been in the LA area for about 5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's been crazy. The one big city that I've always wanted to live in that I've never lived in is New York. So that could be in my future. I don't know. But as of this point, Santa Monica, it's got the beach. I'm not complaining.
Yeah. There's the famous YouTuber, what's his name? Casey Neistat. He moved from New York down to California, where you are, right?
Yeah, he left New York.
He's happy with his move. I mean, it's a different. I used to go to New York every year. When I was, it's an easy drive from Toronto, where I grew up, and I've got a lot of family in Queens, New York, and a little place called Richmond Hill. I love it. So it's a city with so much character. I've been in China for a long time now. I've been in China for 12 years, and in Shenzhen pretty much the whole time. Hong Kong part of the time, but Shenzhen. And it's such a new city. Like, everything is so new. Everything is so high tech. And when I went to New York for what was it called? Consensus or something. It was a blockchain. It was a blockchain kind of a meetup there, a conference. It was like 2 years ago, and I saw New York with a set of eyes that I never saw before, because I've been so used to this high-tech city. Where in New York, I stayed in this hotel that was like 100 years old, and when you walk across the floor, you can hear the floorboards creaking, and you can hear the subways from the street, like you can hear the subways whooshing from below, and the subway systems are so dirty, and that's fine though. It's just it's got character, and it's so different from here. It's like out of this world. I joked to my roommates that as the lockdown happened in America, a lot of the stuff that China already had like 2 years ago, they're like catching up with all the delivery services, and like Amazon Live was blowing up and stuff like that. But like China had all that. Yeah. China's e-commerce was so much more integrated into everyone's life than Amazon is to everyone's life. As much as everyone thinks Amazon is taking over in America, you just think about how Chinese people are they can order stuff, everything's going to get to them no matter what city. You order anything, it's going to get to you in like 10 minutes. It's just like there are certain things are so far ahead, and this lockdown almost gave some American businesses, a lot of these things, time to almost catch up to like China's level of certain things. Yeah. I mean, even China's evolving from this. Like, I mean, all kinds of new practices are in place, all kinds of things. Like, life will change here forever. But yeah, the things just, when they pick up, like when WeChat Pay came out, everything, the adoption rate was so quick. Yeah. And I have a really difficult time imagining living anywhere else. We were at last year before this situation, we were at the park, and we took our kids out, and we had our badminton rackets. And we forgot the birdies. We had no badminton birdies. And so no problem. We got onto Jingdong Daojia, the really fast JD.com service. And within 15 minutes, we had a guy who came to our location in the park with our birdies that we bought for like 15 renminbi off of, Jingdong Daojia. It was like amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
But, yeah.
And, Amazon's trying some of that, right? Amazon has like Amazon Pantry and stuff like that. So like if you really needed groceries fast, you could get it. But we actually our house actually tried to order groceries once from one of the local markets, and the upcharge because of the delivery. Oh man, it's like, nope. I guess we're still gonna have to brave the stores. It was so much, man. It's like I think the price was like doubled or tripled or something. And if this were China, it wouldn't be like that. You know, you wouldn't just getting your groceries delivered from a store, double, triple the price. Nope.
Yeah, obviously you've got like the economies of scale here too, right?
Yeah.
That helps out. Am I coming through okay on your side, or is it coming through a little
you're
bit
coming
choppy?
through very well.
Oh, okay. I'm getting a little bit of chop sometimes when you're talking, but as long as you can hear me fine, then that means
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay, good. Yeah. So you haven't really spent much of your life in China at all.
Yeah, I have not spent my life in China that much, really. It's the reason why, quote unquote, I analyze Chinese society really well is because I worked at a Chinese company for 2 years. If you're familiar with Jinzhi Toutiao or Douyin, American viewers know TikTok. So I worked for their parent company. So I got to see the business world in China, and it's quite eye opening because I'm not going to pretend that when I first entered the company, it wasn't a culture shock. I had to learn to quote unquote be more Chinese again. And I'm not going to ever be real completely Chinese. That's just the truth. Right? I got a lot of American Western culture in me, but it definitely, working at ByteDance helped me at least understand a lot of the Chinese cultural stuff that I didn't grow up in America seeing. I'm never going to be able to become like that, I don't think, but
yeah. I mean, it'd be difficult. I mean, my situation is even more complex in the sense that, my father's British, my mother's from Guyana, in South America. I was born in England, and then I moved to Canada when I was 5. And so the question of identity was always a confusing question too. Like, what am I? What team am I supposed to be cheering for in the World Cup or whatever it is? But at the end of the day, I grew up in Canada, so I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian. Now I've been here in China for the last 12 years. I've become more, they have a phrase in Shenzhen, which is called 来自深圳就是深圳人. When you come to Shenzhen, you're a Shenzhen person. And after 12 years, pretty much, I'm I think I qualify. But the thing I'm interested about too, because there's a lot of cases of discrimination. Like I know the Vancouver police came out just the other day too, talking about the real concerning kind of increase in discrimination against Chinese. And in that sense, people who discriminate against others, they don't do it based on your passport. They do it based on what you look like. Yeah, and have you felt any kind of rising tension or become concerned about it? Are you pretty okay in your area? Like, what's it like?
Before I mention that, it's so funny that you mentioned Vancouver because I keep seeing news from Vancouver. I've been to Vancouver twice, right? I love Vancouver. I don't know why the city of Vancouver, like it seems to be like the coolest, nicest city, but I keep getting news like every day almost. There seems to be some kind of incident in Vancouver. So I don't know, you're Canadian. Do you have any explanation why Vancouver, this like city, it seems like the nicest city ever? Suddenly there's like an uptick in this stuff.
You know what? I mean, it's pretty uncharacteristic. I mean, there's racism in Canada. There's racism in a lot of places, but to see it increase in this level, I really think a lot of it has ties into this anti-China rhetoric, where there's a huge blame game going on right now, and then you compound it by things like the Epic Times, which is like total garbage propaganda, Falun Gong media stuff that they've delivered for free to every Canadian house. And people try to keep making the distinction saying, oh, well, it's anti-CCP. It's not anti-Chinese people. You know what? Bigots and racists, they don't make that distinction. They say, okay, China is evil. Chinese government is evil. So we're going to take it out on Chinese people. They don't make that distinction. So I just think it's the propaganda. It's the extreme propaganda that's going on right now that's making even the most reasonable of societies see this spike in discrimination. That's my take. But.
Mm-hmm. So now answering your question, I personally don't see that much of it because Santa Monica is it's a quote unquote a pretty like well off area, and on top of that, I'm pretty sure Santa Monica is pretty like left leaning. So like when you have well off people who are left leaning, usually they tend to be the most sensitive in times like this. So I haven't really stumbled on anything. The only thing that I stumbled on was yesterday. It was really funny. I was walking. And this like old white lady, like, I don't know how she turned at me and And because she was walking in front of me, right? And she was like, no, no, no. And I was like, wait, what? And then she moved to the side. She's like, you're so immature. I was like, wait, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? And she tried to like push me, but she didn't actually like touch me, right? Because she's not gonna touch me. So like I was like, I stood there. I was like, wait, are you talking to me? What's going on? She just looked at me, and I just kept walking. So I mean, if you want an incident, I guess that's my incident, but. It's not like I did anything. I guess I was trying to pass her, right? She was walking on the street, taking up the sidewalk, trying to pass her, and I guess I scared her or something. But
yeah, that's interesting. You know what? There was I don't know if you heard about the discrimination against foreigners in China. There was a little period of time where Chinese became more concerned about foreigners because now, pretty much everything's under control here, and it's foreign governments that aren't really doing a good job with this. So they're afraid of this being brought back in. Now, there's some irony about that because the majority of the travelers coming back are Chinese ethnicity anyways, but it created a suspicion around foreigners. I didn't really personally experience anything. I heard from a lot of friends who did, like, there were hotels that didn't want to take them and stuff like that. And China hasn't been through this kind of a thing where they have that cultural sensitivity piece where they know that that's unacceptable. You can't just deny people of a certain ethnicity to come into a hotel. So it was wrong, but I didn't experience any of it personally. But I did have once when I was walking through there was a car wash place here, and they have an entrance to the parking garage. So I cut through there, and there was one customer in there waiting for his car, and he had his like mask hanging on his chin. And then as soon as he saw me, he went like this and quickly put his mask on. So that was my version of it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's so interesting to like experience it on your end too, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like it's in reverse, and they haven't. You know what? There hasn't been that long history here of a lot of stuff that China needs to make up for in terms of long histories of racial discrimination, in terms of, like in Canada with the natives people or with slavery in the US and all this stuff. They don't have that context. But it's an opportunity for them to see the kind of backlash that happens from this and say, no, guys, this is not acceptable. And society has kind of been like that anyways here. Like they're not they're not afraid to group and categorize people and kind of put them into these, like, so before, after this situation, they were kind of scared of people from Hubei province, but it's not really easy to see who's from Hubei province and who's not, unless you're really good at picking up accents. But then before that, you had these stereotypes about people, like they'd say people from Henan are scammers. They say,
oh yeah, I've heard that all my life.
Yeah. So it's like they got a history of doing this, grouping people together in categories. Then they got stuff on the more positive side where they say people from Chaozhou or Wenzhou are like super business people. They're they really know how to do business. And I guess we all kind of we try to categorize things and group things, but at least our societies in the West have gotten to a place where we're supposed to know theoretically that we're not supposed to do that anymore. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but people who want to do that, they at least got to be a little bit more discreet about it. You're never going to get a hotel in Canada or the US where somebody walks in and they says, oh no, we don't take people from your ethnicity. It's going to be a little bit more.
The one exception is Koreans in LA. Koreans in LA, if you go like to the right place in Koreatown, they'll just be like, oh, this place is only for Koreans. And you'll be like, hey, that's not how it works in America. But yeah, it will happen only in Koreatown. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah.
That's pretty. It happened to me a few times. Right. I don't look Korean, and I usually don't hang around like just Asians. So I'll walk into a Korean place with a group of people and that are not all looking like me, and they'll be like, oh, all y'all, you're not Korean. They'll be like, no, this place is only for Koreans.
Did you hear about so I don't know if you know, like, in California back during the Rodney King riots, the Korean communities were like targeted a lot. They got a lot. They had a lot of their shops vandalized.
Yeah.
And they created these groups where you had they would look out for each other. And if one of their shops was being attacked or one of them was in trouble, they had a way to communicate with other people who would show up quickly. And a couple months ago, I saw that there was something similar going on with the Chinese community. I saw screen captures from WeChat groups where they created these groups, and if a Chinese person was being attacked on the street, they had these districts, and they'd say which district they're in, and then they were able to respond and get to the scene faster than the police could. And generally speaking, they had a driver, and usually two passengers, one who's going to be armed with a gun or whatever, something like that. Like it's like serious. Like you could make movies out of this stuff. But I don't know if
you know what
about
cities.
I've got it in my history somewhere which specific city it was. It might have been L.A. I'm not sure, but I know it was in California, and the inspiration came from, or at least they drew some parallels to what they had when the Korean community was being targeted during the Rodney King riots.
Wow. I mean, one thing we do know is that there are gun shops in LA where it's like servicing the Asian community. So, and I remember when the lockdown first happened, there was a big run on the gun shops. You know, a lot of people felt unsafe, and they like went and like lined up not to get groceries but to get guns.
Wow, and it was like a lot of the Asian community who were feeling vulnerable.
I think it was everyone, but those gun shops that were servicing the Asian community, they got an upsurge in sales too. But what people don't realize is, everyone's panicking, right? Everyone's prepared for the worst. So even police departments are, there's so many gun manufacturer, armor manufacturers in America. So like even those companies are reporting higher sales. It's not just individuals, like police departments are ordering from them too. It's really interesting situation.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of scary too, though, where everybody is on that kind of that level of anxiety, where everybody's running out and getting guns. It's like, I mean, it's such a foreign idea to me for me to begin with.
Yeah,
like
especially you've been in China for 12 years, right? Nobody even has a knife, so.
Yeah. Even in Canada, we don't have that same kind of a gun culture to begin with. There are people with guns, but it's nothing like the gun culture down there. So it's such a foreign idea to me. And just the idea, like if I was living in a neighborhood, and I don't know, maybe you have a different relationship with the idea of it because you've grown up in this society. But if I feel like if I was in a town, if I was in a city where all of a sudden everybody around me was feeling, they were going out and buying guns because they felt anxiety, I would start feeling really uncomfortable with where I was living. I don't know. Maybe this is like something normal. Like you feel like, yeah, that's what we do when we feel like there's some shit that's about to hit the fan. We go out and get some guns.
It's funny because when you describe it that way, it doesn't feel normal, right? But I guess since I've grown up in this culture, it's just like, yeah. I remember the first time I saw a person with a lot of guns, it was a birthday party. I was at some like company, like a company event or something. I think it was a company event or basically, it was like a coworker of my mom invited a bunch of company people. So we were all hanging out in their new house. And then I just randomly wandered upstairs and the guys were like showing each other all their guns. And this guy, this was in Virginia, right? Virginia's gun law is a little bit more relaxed than like DC or Maryland. But he legitimately had like 100 guns in his, and he was like showing it off. And then like he saw me looking, he's like, "Oh yeah, kids shouldn't be watching this. Kids don't think this is cool." But I was like, why does he need 100 guns in his house? And that was like my first. I was 11, I think, or 12. I think I was 11. That's my first time seeing like that type of person. And he's not your stereotypical like I talk like this kind of accent type of guy, right? He's not like that. White collar guy. I think what people don't realize, and correct me if this is wrong for any viewers that know more about this, but the majority of people that own the guns, the majority of guns are owned by a few people. So it's not like, that type of person who talks about like cooking, baking, and like that type of person actually doesn't own a lot of guns. It's actually like probably more rich people, a certain group of rich people that actually maybe owns the majority of guns. And correct me if I'm wrong. I could be misinterpreting some of the data, but I believe that's what I read back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you probably get like a lot of hobbyists also. I mean, at that point, when you got 100 guns and only 2 hands, I mean, it's got to be, for hobby purposes or, an interest like collecting baseball cards or whatever. I don't know.
Exactly. It was like it literally was collecting baseball cards. That's exactly because, I was so young. I was 11. I couldn't understand why someone would collect something this deadly. But the equivalent I made that day when I saw that was in my mind. Okay, just like some of my friends collect magic cards, this guy's collecting guns. That's his magic cards.
Yeah. I think that's what it must be. I mean, it would be highly unlikely for a kid growing up in Canada, especially if you're close to the city, to have an experience like that. I mean, I think the first time I saw a gun in my life, like actually see one and hold one, was in Michigan. When I had some family who has a cottage in Michigan, and they had like just kind of like a rifle kind of a thing. But there are people in Canada who have guns. I have a lot of friends who like going to these gun ranges where you can play around with a lot of really interesting guns, but they got to go down to Buffalo to do it. They got to cross the border, and they love it. They love that they can go down and they can shoot all these really cool, interesting weapons. But the thing that they said they love even more than that is that they have to cross the border to do it first. They're glad it's down there. You know, they enjoy it. They enjoy guns, but they're glad that it's not in Canada like that. They got to go across the border to do it. And I think a lot of Canadians are kind of on board with that thought process.
That's so interesting. I know a lot of Chinese people too. When they come over to, let's say, LA or whatever, they travel over. They usually try to shoot guns too. You know, because again, it's that thing. It's like, oh, I want to try out different guns that maybe I can't shoot at gun ranges in China and stuff like that. But I'm glad it's in America, right? That's always the thought. I'm glad it's in America.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do it. Like that's like, it's almost like guns in America are like it goes together. Of course, that's like the perfect combo, you know. So if you go there, you got to. I've done it too. When I went to Las Vegas, I used to go to CES every year. And I went to this gun range where you can shoot like fully automatic machine guns. And it was just unbelievable that they got a lot of security, obviously, but it was just a surreal experience. It was next door to the Happy Days daycare center. And it was goodness. Just, this gun range with fully automatic machine guns.
Yeah. And, it's funny you mentioned Vegas because I remember one time I was in Vegas, I was looking at some of the things, right? There was this one place where you can shoot an M135 minigun from a helicopter. You could like go on it. You know, it costs a lot of money, and I'm sure there's a reason they're charging that much because there's actually people that would pay to do it. But I remember I was like, wow, you know, this is Vegas. This is yeah.
I got a couple. I haven't been watching my chats, but there are two chats that just came through. One says, "Hey Jerry, I'm surprised to see you here. I know you through that movie you were in a few years ago back in Maryland. Were you in a movie?"
Yeah, I was in this. So I've been in quite a few movies. I don't know which one he's talking about, but there was this one movie where it was one of. Are you okay with me saying the F word?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it was like my fuck you to like adulthood movie where I used to work at Fox 29, so I used to work at the Philadelphia Fox station, and when I quit, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm still young. I can do one stupid thing before I quote unquote grow up. So I was in the zombie movie, and the zombie movie was kind of like a softcore movie. I didn't realize it until I saw the final movie. I thought it was just like a funny, scary movie, but man, there's a lot of sex in it, unfortunately. So I was like, okay, I knew it was going to be a bad movie, but it's going to be like bad and funny. It turns out it was more like just bad and kind of funny, but more bad. And no offense to the director. I'm friends with the director. He's cool, but I'm just being honest as to like what I thought about the movie. So I don't know if he's talking about that movie. There was another movie.
I didn't even know you were in any movies. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there was another one. I might have missed some old super chats, but there was another guy who says, Arthur Larson, he's I've seen him on my channel a lot. Hey Arthur, nice to see you on here. He says watch a video today of a Chinese national living in Texas who owns a ranch and hosts Chinese tourists who want to learn to shoot. That's pretty cool.
I think I've seen that documentary too.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's a smart guy. Good business right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. It must be like, do you have any like family in China that come over and visit you like for the first time, and you kind of see that, or is most of your immediate family they're all in the U.S.?
They're all in America, so like that kind of like, oh my god, oh America's so different. I haven't seen people show those emotions in a while.
Yeah, because that's always interesting is like, when you have somebody come that is seeing your home with new eyes.
Yeah.
It's always an interesting experience because sometimes you get a chance to see your own city in a way that you never considered or notice things that you never noticed before when somebody from the outside does. And I mean, it happened just now also when I talked about looking at gun culture in the sense when people feel anxiety, they go out and and buy guns, I would feel more anxious than anything else. And it's like, oh, that's, you need somebody from the outside who hasn't been in that culture for so long to look at it as that much of a crisis. But,
I'm looking at the super chat that you're talking about. I actually know the person you're talking who was asking that question. So good to see you. Her name's Grace. Good to see you, Grace. So that's a different movie. That was a Chinese movie. So it was this director who it's a little sketchy, but it was a cool experience. I got to basically produce a movie, and I acted in a few scenes. So that's the movie she's talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but it's cool. It's cool that Grace is a fan of your channel. That's awesome, man. You reach like all types of people, man. It's great, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting experience. The thing that drove me to make content was the Hong Kong protests. That's really where I got started. Is just because I thought there was a part of the story that wasn't being told. And you can imagine how many people didn't like hearing anything other than the mainstream narrative that about the Hong Kong protests and painting it as this really righteous movement without any flaws or anything like that. So people get really offended when you challenge things like that, especially when they come with certain keywords like freedom and democracy. Even though a lot of the people who were using them use those words without really thinking about them, without thinking about what they mean. But it's kind of morphed into a little bit more. I got blasted in a Hong Kong protester group with 17,000 protesters, and they called me. They said they wanted to target me. They wanted to try to get my channel shut down and stuff like that. So they're trying to find different ways to shut down my channel. And they called me a gaoji wumao, a high-level wumao. And so I've kind of embraced the phrase now. Now, I have a lot of friends here. That's my nickname now. So that's kind of been my channel. My channel's morphed into telling the side of China that people don't get to see. Mm-hmm. Are there negatives here? Yeah, there's negatives here. Not as bad as people make it out to be, but people have places to hear those things already. And there seems to be nowhere for people in the West to really hear about what is done right here, because there's a lot that's done right here. Mm-hmm. And so that's what my kind of content has morphed into.
Yeah, and that's a good brand positioning for you. I think that's gonna carry you far. So, dude, it's great, man. And that's why I remember when your stuff came up in my feed, I was like, whoa, this is cool. It's not like you're like, oh my God, China, everything good. Oh, you're actually being very reasonable. That's why I made that video. And I was like, dude, Daniel Dumbrill, this is cool. He's like the Western I want to listen to, right? There's unfortunately some other people who, especially once they left China, they were just like, okay, let's jump on this anti-China train. I'm just like, come on, people. Like, you went to China, you got your Chinese wife. Wasn't that enough? Can't you be happy? You still have to bash China.
Yeah. There's some people who really go real hard in the other direction, isn't it? Yeah. They spend a few years here and then they go back and then they make a career out of bashing China. And the interesting thing is for that is that making a career out of bashing China seems to be pretty lucrative. You get really good, easy subscriber growth. You get the money that's going into these institutions like Epic Times and things like that. They're getting government grants. The Canadian government gives millions of dollars per year to NDT TV or something like that. It's
NDTV, New Tang Dynasty or something. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They get millions of dollars in grants from the Canadian government also for for being culturally diverse TV content. And it's like a Falun Gong kind of really heavy anti-China thing. It's the pro-China accounts that's not a monetizable thing. That's not something you can, I even had, so I've been putting a lot more time into my channel. And after a certain point, after a certain number of hours, you do consider, okay, if I want to keep doing this, is there a way to kind of make it more sustainable? And so I played around with some different things. I did an interview with my buddies and I put a QR code for a bottle of wine, the bottle of wine that we were drinking. And it was okay. It worked out okay, but it's only for in China. But for brand sponsorships and stuff like that, if there was and I did speak to, they found me. It was a Chinese brand who said they want like a social media influencer to just introduce their product and talk about it a little bit more. And would I be interested? And I said, well, you know, as long as I was really transparent about it with my viewers and depending on what the product is, if it's something I believe in. And then they went back and they looked at more of my content and they're like, oh, no, that's I'm a little bit too edgy. And that's fine, you know, it's like, because I talk about politics, I talk about correcting people's misconceptions about their ideas about how governments work and things like that. So it's not something that's ever going to be highly marketable. So when you say success, when you say it's a good brand, it's a good success, for slowly growing the channel of people who are open-minded enough to listen to a different perspective, that's how I'll measure success. And in that regard, I do hope I find success in that sense.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. By the way, did you check the monetization of this live chat on your account? Are you able to monetize it? Because like I when this went live on my account, I was demonetized immediately. It's pretty funny.
This probably is going to be the same, but I don't think there's much of a monetization ability on the live stream because it's just live other than the super chats. I mean, they do put ads at the beginning, I think, but I'm not sure. There's a couple, speaking of super chats, though, there are a couple more that just came in. So Costello says, sorry if I missed it, but have you discussed Jimmy Dore's interview with the pro-Chinese guy? Forgot his name. No, I didn't realize he did that. I saw Jimmy Dore's interview with what's his name? He's a really anti-China guy, and he had some really weird takes. He was calling Han Chinese having a superiority, Han supremacists. He called them Han supremacists who want to take over the world. Han supremacists. Wow. Yeah. And it was the most bizarre thing ever. And I retweeted, I tweeted a cutout from his video, and he saw it, and then he blocked me instantly on Twitter. But it was the most weird thing that I saw. So this Jimmy Dore, I'm going to look up, and thank you, Costello, for that. I'm going to look that up afterwards and check it out.
It might be the video where he talks to this guy named Danny Haifeng. So check that out. To that viewer, let us know if it's that one, the one where Jimmy Dore interviews this guy named Danny Haifeng.
Yeah, we'll look it up after. That'll be pretty good. But I guess your content, though, because you haven't really been living in China. You know, actually, the thing is even if you were living in China for a long time and you had an understanding of the situation in China, you know what? Going live and breaking apart some of the anti-China propaganda and talking against it, it's not gonna win you a lot of fans, especially if you're trying to operate in the U.S. and you're trying to find jobs as an actor and stuff like that. You look at like what's her name, the actress who played Mulan, right? You know, she just tweeted something supporting the Hong Kong protests, and she got blasted. Everybody wanted to boycott the movie and stuff like that. There's certain things you're not allowed to talk about. The American public makes sure that they keep everybody in line in terms of self-censorship. You know, you look at who was the basketball player again, who they were really pushing. I can't believe his name. He's one of the most famous basketball players there are. You remember, like there was the Hong Kong topic. It was almost like McCarthyism all over again. Like the media was like interviewing all these NBA stars to make sure that they didn't support the Chinese Communist Party or the Hong Kong police, and that they had the right answers about the Hong Kong protests. It was the most bizarre thing that I ever saw. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
But hold on a second.
What I think is really interesting is that we're still in lockdown mode here in America. So it's like, you know, we honestly in our minds don't even have that much space to think about a lot of other stuff. We're still thinking about lockdown, but like you're thinking beyond that now. You're thinking about other issues in life. It's so funny.
Yeah, it has changed the whole narrative a little bit. It's coming back. Obviously, the Hong Kong protests have started again because they got the national security law that's coming out. And so that's getting a little bit more media, but it was LeBron James, I believe. It was,
someone on my comment section also said LeBron James or in the
chat.
Yeah.
So it was LeBron, and it was interesting to see him. All he said, he didn't say he supported CCP. He didn't say he supported the Hong Kong police. He just said, I think we don't have enough information, which is the understatement of a century, like based on the information that was getting, and people blasted him there. They said, oh, he's, it was a completely unacceptable answer. And, it's like one of his teammates said something too, which was interesting. They said that this is an interesting phenomenon. It's like when basketball players are talking about politics, like back when they came out, I think some of them were supporting Hillary Clinton or something like that. People just tell them, shut up and dribble. You're sports players, not supposed to be involved in politics. Now, all of a sudden, not only are they supposed to be involved in politics, but they're supposed to have the right answer according to the person who's asking the question. They're not really asking the question genuinely curious about their answer. They're asking the question to make sure that they have the right answer. And that's like the Red Scare. That's like McCarthyism all over again. And it's why, like, Bill Clinton, on his last day of presidency, that was the only time he finally said that maybe Americans need to get used to the idea that they're not going to be the only global superpower anymore, because obviously China was rising and stuff like that. But he wouldn't dare say that during his presidency. That's like political suicide to say something like that, to admit that there's another rising power that might challenge the U.S. So it's just interesting that there's certain things that you're actually not allowed to talk about or say in the U.S. Well, you can say it, but there'll be consequences.
Yeah, there'll definitely be consequences. A very interesting flip side is, especially in the entertainment circle, if you're too right of center. So if you're too conservative, you will also have problems. Unless you're Clint Eastwood or you're Bruce Willis, where you're already established, then you can be like, yeah, I support Trump. But if you are not established, just pretend you're really liberal, pretend you're really left. It's so interesting. So it's like, you can't be too like pro-China, but you also can't be too like right, can't be too Second Amendment. You can't be too about constitutionalism so it's so interesting. It's like, you have to fit into this one little mold, at least in the entertainment industry.
That's interesting, that maybe that's why when you get people who support Trump or who support a certain side, like if you're going to support Trump, you got to go all in, and you can't have any sense of reluctance. Like, you've got to be a big personality and put yourself out there. You can't just be an ordinary actor or a guy who says, I think Trump might have a point on this. It's almost like you got to be ready to fight, and you got to say, no, you know what? I support Trump all the way, and F you if you want to challenge me. Like, you got to be this loud personality, or you got to be this bold, like Clint. You have to be Clint Eastwood, basically.
Yeah.
To be a Trump supporter. And it seems like it feeds into creating these divides. You've got to be
It's unfortunate. It really is. If you have to, like you said, if you want to be conservative, you have to be like so conservative. You have to like Trump does no wrong type of conservative, and then. If you're anyone that's open-minded, it's really hard. It's just really hard. I try to be open-minded. Again, some people can say, no, Jerry's not open-minded, blah, blah, blah. But I try to be open-minded. I just find it so hard. That's why, in general, when people try to talk politics with me, I just tend to be like, okay, whatever. I listen to you. Cool. Yeah. I don't want to, because if you like try to play devil's advocate, you'll get criticized. But if you try to state your own views, you get criticized. You're just like, whatever. Politics stays away from me.
Yeah, that's probably like, because at the end of the day, like, if you really ask your question, you got to ask yourself the question: what's the point? Like, there's nothing good that's going to come out of the conversation. But what you were saying about you got to be like full on support. I remember I'm trying to look for the tweet. I retweeted because Ben Shapiro is a smart guy.
Yeah, he's super smart, and he talks at like 60 miles per hour too.
Yeah. He is. And so you would think, and he's praised himself for being able to call out his own side, but there were some recent tweets of his where, like, when Bill Clinton, when Trump was talking about like bleach and stuff like that, and people started saying this is really irresponsible for the president to be talking about experimental bleach therapies and stuff like that. And he came out defending him in the most weird way, like, oh, you shouldn't have taken him so literal, or all this stuff, like really defending him. Whereas, if that came from the other side, he would have been all over them. He would have been like, what the heck is wrong with you? He would have called them an idiot. But because it was Trump, he had no choice. He had to show his support, no matter how ridiculous the thing was that he was saying. And it goes into what you were saying. Like, you've either you're either with us or you're against us. There's there seems to be no middle ground.
Yeah. And it's election season, and unfortunately, a lot of ads, right? It's all about eyeballs, right? If there's eyeballs to whatever news platform, if there's eyeballs to whatever news app, they can sell more ads. So there's an incentive, unfortunately, during election season to sell the type of news that divides people in a democracy even more. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like I don't even, what do you call it? Like a capitalism or a crony capitalism failure that it messes up democracy, because in election season, you started seeing this in 2016, but you're seeing the same thing again. This election season, just people get more and more into their own echo chambers because the ads they're being served by all these platforms are targeting them based on their political beliefs. So all they're seeing, all the news, all the discussion in their feeds, it's only what they want to see. So it's like to sell them more ads, to get them to stay on the platform longer, they're only seeing what they want to see. So
yeah, it's scary how the algorithms work. It reminds me of a talk that one guy did. I can't remember his name now. He's an African-American guy, and he wanted to venture into the world of, the alt-right, to understand these people better, understand their perspectives better.
Oh, I remember that talk. It's a TED Talk.
Yes, yeah. And he couldn't do it under his own profile because his own profile knows who he is. They're like, no, we're not going to show you this stuff. And he had to create an alternate identity to actually go into the deep alt-right and find out about these people. And it was interesting that he even had to make racist comments against black people himself to get the algorithms on his side, to get way over there, And he was successful. He did it. He got under that side and started to get to know the people and even kind of liked some of them on a personal level, just realizing they're ordinary people also. But that's how much effort it took to see anything from the other side. And so, under our normal profiles, without trying to actively do the same thing, we're just fed what we want to hear. And it's kind of scary, the results.
And we're fed what we want to hear, and we're fed an agenda. So if we don't have a decision yet, we don't have kind of a leaning yet, we're fed whatever agenda that the platform wants to sell us.
Yeah, that's right. And there are a few things that come across that are obviously bipartisan, so the China hatred thing is pretty bipartisan. Now it's a competition. It seems like sometimes the competition between Trump and Biden is just like, who's going to hate China more, which is like the weirdest thing to run on. But everything else, the society is so divided on. But so maybe that's the one advantage for China. China is bringing American society together so that they can, jointly
like find a common enemy or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's what happened with obviously the Iraq War and stuff like that. After 9/11, everybody became really unified. It was a terrible thing that happened, but you even had like left-wing guys like what's his name? What's the shock jock, the original radio guy in New York? I can't believe I forgot his name. Howard Stern. Howard Stern. Yeah, I mean, even Howard Stern, after it happened, he says, we got to go over there. We got to bomb the shit out of them. We got to pave over them and steal their oil. And this is like, from left to right, it was like everybody was unified. And maybe that's true for every society, is that, you need to create a common enemy to really become unified. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, you kind of see the same kind of a thing happening in China also, because I had a lot of friends here who worked and studied overseas, and they really respected, they're Chinese mainlanders, they really respected Western democracy and how the systems work overseas. Mm-hmm. And the first hit was the Hong Kong protests. When they saw the way the Hong Kong protests were done and how the Western news was reporting on it on such a really dishonest way, they started kind of saying, you know what, maybe our system here is a little bit better. And then the next one was the handling of this virus. When they look at how the virus is being handled overseas versus here, they did what they had to do. There were lockdowns. It's like, no, you can't go out and protest and say, I have the right to, hang out with friends without a mask on in the middle of a pandemic. To each their own, but people here appreciated that that's what was done, and appreciate that the results now is that our kids are going back to school and our businesses are open. We did what we had to do. It was really hard for that short period of time. But for China, the common enemy right now, at least the feeling I get on the ground from mainland Chinese, is Western propaganda, Western blaming, Western kind of villainizing of China, it's kind of brought the people here together a little bit more, where it's like we got to really stick together when we're being attacked this much. So maybe that's a natural phenomena everywhere, is you need a common enemy to really unify in that kind of a way. It's unfortunate that it works out that way, and it's unfortunate the way that it's being played, but maybe that's just what it is.
And I can think of, before all this, right, it was common to always remind people, remember Japanese people, World War II? And, it was common to do that to kind of get people to stand together. And like you talk to Koreans, right? South Koreans will tell you that for a long time in South Korea, whenever they needed people to because South Korea, they're a democracy, right? When they need people to stop bickering with each other, be like, hey, remember up north? Remember North Korea? It's always good to find something common that people can fear and work against. So it's human nature.
Yeah, they've literally got this cloud hovering above their head that reminds them, oh, we got to stick together, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Man, super interesting. It's funny you mentioned the whole lockdown stuff, right? Because the thing is, I think a lot of people in America, the people that thought about this, they realize, okay, you either do it two ways, right? You either respect everyone's freedom, respect everyone's liberty, just let herd immunity build, and then unfortunately some people die, right? There's that way, or you really lock down. You can't have it. You can't do a middle ground. And at least in LA, that first week during the lockdown, it was almost like a middle ground. Like they announced the lockdown, and then we all stayed home, and then I went out for a run because I needed to get some exercise. But besides that, I stayed home, right? And then when I was going out for a run in the park, man, just young people sitting there picnicking, chatting, doing yoga. It was like 人山人海, that expression? It's like what you would imagine a Chinese park to be. That's what the parks were like during the lockdown, the first week. And I remember when I came back home, I told my roommates, I'm like, I think this is going to lead to that park getting closed, and it's going to lead to a lot of trouble. And then, yes, a few days later, the park was closed, and nobody could go to the park to take a walk or run or whatever because those people were treating it like a picnic. If you decide as a society to lock down, man. Don't. It's not your time now to just sit around and eat. And it was so bizarre.
I think in our societies in the West, it really is more about, the individual, and the whole mindset here is a little bit different. When, there was a really high level of cooperation here. You had a few people, who maybe weren't following the rules, but more or less there was widespread, cooperation. My building that I'm in, there wasn't a rule that we couldn't go out. We could still go out, but nobody was out. I can see the park. I can see the Shenzhen Bay Park from my apartment. Nobody was going out. They could if they wanted to. Nobody's going to stop them, but they had maximum cooperation. Because you got to realize, I think you got to realize is when you're living in a society, you're not living on your own remote island somewhere. You're not living on a farm by yourself somewhere. You're living in a society. You got to consider the people around you. And in terms of that, more of a harmonious kind of a mindset, I think it's so much more easy to accomplish here, where people don't have this idea of, the most important thing is individual liberties. And that might sound weird, though, but by accepting that there's something more important than individual liberties, you actually end up having more freedom and more safety as a group. I don't think you necessarily need to wait for a pandemic to see that kind of a mindset show its advantages. It works in other ways too, when people are coming together to move the country forward in one specific direction. We're never going to be like that in Canada. We're never going to be like that in the US. We should never adopt a Chinese style system in the West. But I just think people should think a little bit more about being so sure that the system here needs to change according to Western values and the way that Westerners think and stuff like that. It's just a completely different way of doing things. And to be honest, I'm pretty thankful for being here during a time like this.
Yeah, it's the benefit of travel and perspective, right? I think a lot of people who've never traveled to a system that's not what you consider like a Canadian or a US system, it's hard for them to fathom that every system, of course, has drawbacks, but
Yep.
there's a reason the systems exist, right? There's a reason the institution exists in whatever other place. And so,
Yeah.
and that's why I, unfortunately, not now on the lockdown, it's hard, but I encourage everyone once this is over to go travel a lot, go travel more, go to places, go to Somaliland, go to South Africa, go to different places and just like see how the systems work. Because what you'll realize is there's a reason why, when I go to China every time, I'm like, wow, I could potentially live here. I go to Canada, I'm like, yeah, I could potentially live here too. So like you see the good in different cultures and different governments even. And, again, I'm not saying anything's perfect, but you definitely see why something works.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for here, from my perspective, if this was back in, like 2008, if this was like before, Hu Jintao kind of era, I probably wouldn't be this positive about the system here. It was kind of messy. He's like, I'm so sure he's going to become like a forgotten leader of China, because he was just like, he didn't really do anything. I mean, there's probably some ways that people can debate me on that, but if you compare what's going on now in terms of cracking down on corruption and moving the country forward in a really positive direction, putting accountability systems in place for leaders, you've got if leaders screw up or they really upset the people, local leaders, they get replaced. They've got systems, they've got accountability systems in place. And it doesn't take much effort to look at the system here and say, what, this is really actually working pretty well for them. And it takes exactly what you said, like traveling to South Africa, traveling to all these different places and seeing it doesn't mean you can't walk away by saying, these are the things I dislike about these societies, but certainly don't close your mind off to seeing the positives and what's working well. There's certainly lots of them here.
Yeah. And I always, an extension of that, I tell people, like, if you go travel to other places, try to hang out with the locals, man. That's the key. Yep. Right? If you're only going to hang out with the expats, then of course you're not going to see the city. You're not going to see the culture.
Yeah,
and I think, Daniel, that's one thing you do very well. You have your own brew pub. You got Chinese friends. Like, that's good, right? And there's other, especially some of those China bashers. They almost like have this like superiority complex. And I'm not just criticizing China bashers. You can see this a lot with like certain people who like expats in Japan or expats in Korea. I've seen similar cases where they're like, oh yeah, I'm from America, I'm better. Oh my God. And then they'll kind of like, that's their mentality when they go there. And of course, then you're not going to feel like you're part of the culture.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, you get people who come over here and they don't interact with the locals enough to change their lens. They've got to change their lens to really understand society here according to its own history, its own ways of life, its own philosophies. But what they do is they keep the same lens on and they're judging China according to their own systems.
Yeah.
And then, there's obviously the two really famous anti-China YouTubers. They've made a pretty good career out of bashing China. And when you really listen to their videos, if you really look for whether they had any meaningful relationships with Chinese, they say it themselves. There was one video I saw of theirs where they were bashing, they were talking about how disappointed they were when they found out that when they married a Chinese woman, that they're not just getting a beautiful woman who can cook them meals, but that they also care about their parents. And there's a risk that they're going to have to also take care of their wives' parents one day. And they can't just put them in a retirement home somewhere. And this was like this, like you can see the life coming out of their body when they're explaining, oh my God, they care about their parents. And in that same discussion, they said, I sometimes have, one of them says, I sometimes have Chinese friends. And then the other guy says, yeah, I sometimes have Chinese friends too, but it's fleeting. So you can see from these little pieces of personality they accidentally let slip through that absolutely they have a superiority complex. And no, they didn't have any meaningful relationships while they were here. And it goes back to what you were saying, yeah. Yeah.
And I think the same can be said too for Chinese students, for example, who come to America. I would encourage all of you guys, like try to don't just hang out with your Chinese communities, right? It's cool, you guys get to cook food and, talk in Chinese and stuff, but really go out, go explore the city, go make friends. It's like college is the best place to like try make friends outside of your circle. Man, it gets harder as you get older, right? But like college is a good time to like go to, like, all you have to do is like walk into some random club or something, like not like a bar club, but like, a school club. And like, there's like a million of those, and you can like, so that's the one thing I will say too, because, I went to a school with a lot of Chinese international students, and they like hung out with their own communities. It was fine. I got to hang out with them and like practice my Chinese, and they even spoke Chinese to me, which was cool because, if you're too American, they'll try to practice their English with you, right? But they let me practice my Chinese with them. So that was pretty cool. But, most of them didn't really have any other American friends. So like, what's the point of you coming to America? I mean, I get it. You get a prestigious American degree, but learn some of the culture too. So that's for all like Chinese fans of Daniel's channel too, and whoever's watching my channel.
So I see them on the other side coming back after they've studied in the US. I've got friends here who studied in America. And yeah, it's like they stuck to their groups. They stuck in their little groups, and they're more comfortable speaking to me in Chinese than they are in English. Like, they still want to default to Chinese. And it's like, you were in America for like 5 years. What's going on? They were in their little groups. Absolutely, they need to break out of those groups. I mean, maybe it's a hard thing to do. It's kind of it's a natural thing to do, to want to hang around with people I was lucky in the sense that I started living in a neighborhood here which didn't really have any expats, and I didn't even know where the expat area was in Shenzhen. So I was just kind of forced into that environment where everybody around me was Chinese. The friends I made were Chinese. But had my first location, had my first apartment been in like the middle of an expat area of Shenzhen, it'd probably be a whole different story. I'd probably just naturally gravitate towards that. So maybe that's something that schools need to actively participate in finding out how to give their students not only academic education, but how to push them to experience American culture and society a little bit more. Yeah. Get out of their little bubbles and their groups. Actually, there's a Shenzhen expat service center here who asked me for some advice about how to engage the foreign community a little bit more, because especially after that whole thing where some foreigners were being discriminated against and they couldn't get into hotels, the government was really on top of it. So the expat service center, they came out to me. They know I own a bar. They know I know a lot of people, and they said, what can we do? How can we repair this? How can we make foreigners feel a little bit more welcome? Which is amazing to begin with. Like, to have a government do this, care about their expat or foreign population this much is amazing to begin with. They were asking about helping them out with services, like if they needed to go to the hospital, like having somebody who can go with them, or having a special line for them or something. I said, no, don't do that, because one of the built up resentments against foreigners in China is that they are treated really well here. If you compare how foreigners are treated in China versus how Chinese are treated in Western countries, there's absolutely no comparison.
Oh, absolutely man.
So when this stuff came out, and then you had foreigners legitimately complaining about some discrimination issues here in China, there were some Chinese people that were like, hold on a second. You've been treated like loyalty here the whole time, and now you're complaining. Even though they had a legitimate complaint, you can kind of start understanding that mindset. So I told them, you do that. You create a special lineup for foreigners in a hospital, you're going to make the situation way worse. Yeah. And I said, I can tell you, I'd feel really awkward also. If I went to the hospital and I had a privileged lineup that I could go through, I'd be like, no, don't do that. They said, well, what can we do? I said, organize events and stuff like that. I said, I gave them an example of like a garbage cleanup event, like going to the beach and cleaning up some garbage, something like that. Yeah. And then they were like, oh, we did that before, but we separated the groups, because I said more integration is important. Yeah. She said, what she said to me, she says she was afraid that foreigners would be like, why am I being expected to pick up garbage? I said, no, this accomplishes two really important things. First of all, if the Chinese groups and the foreign groups go together, it creates a kind of cultural mixing in terms of mixing of ideas and making friends, but also it addresses a really important issue where there's a lot of foreigners who have this false perception that Chinese people don't care about the environment. So now they're going on a trip with them to pick up garbage, and they see, oh, wow, there are a lot of local Chinese who care about the environment as much as we do. This isn't a foreign versus a Chinese ideology thing. It's just I haven't been given this opportunity to interact with these other people.
Yeah.
So that was those were the suggestions I gave them. And the cultural, mixing with other people, getting outside of your bubble is an important part of my suggestion with them, just like yours is to Chinese students going to
I love it, man. In social psychology, there was this very famous experiment, the robber baron experiment. I think it was called the robber's cave experiment. Basically, it's like they split these two groups of Boy Scouts or whatever, these campers, and like they had conflicts. And then how did you eventually mend the conflicts? You had them work towards a common goal. So they like built something together. So like that's exactly what it is. It's like you have to share a common goal and not separate the groups, right? You share the common goal.
The common
fact
goal
that you accomplish a common goal together, it gets people to finally stop seeing each other as different.
The common goal is a really important thing also, and not only just some sort of an abstract common goal. It's a goal where when you're walking away from that site, you can see exactly what you are.
Something tangible.
Because there's another study which I really love, which was they were talking about the most satisfied workers in the world. And they're looking at doctors and lawyers and things like that. And the one of the number one highest job satisfaction rates was demolition workers. And it's not, they looked into it because you would think it's just really cool to smash shit up, to knock buildings down. It just sounds cool to begin with. But actually, from a psychological point of view, one of the most important things was that they walk away at the end of the day knowing exactly what they accomplished. There was a building there in the morning and it's gone at night. Whereas you compare that to like office workers and stuff like that. There's so many people who go home and they're like, what the fuck did I just accomplish today? What did I even do today? So common goal and a tangible result, I think is key for that example. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's funny because my junior year of college, I actually went to one of those like pickup trash days that my college organized. And it was pretty funny because like it was one of those, I don't know how they did it, but props to whatever organization organized it. But it had like every type of person there. And like I made a friend who was like, Chinese international. I made a friend who was like, I think she was Pakistani or something, but it was a really good experience. It was like the UN, and literally everyone there is like the UN. And I was like, why didn't they do that freshman year? Freshman year, I remember in college, right? It's like the classic Western type of like college. Oh, it's all like, like all these like welcoming ceremonies. And then at night, everyone goes out to frats and stuff like that. Well, of course, then most of like the more conservative minded people or, people who are not used to this type of drink until you puke type of will not go out. So they're not going to blend anymore. Right. That's when like the social groups start splitting. So why didn't they organize more of that?
Yeah. So when you were going to school and you had these Chinese groups also, did you ever try to pull them out of their comfort zone or take them with you on other things, or were they just really like they're kind of not even interested in the idea, more or less?
That's funny, and it's funny you mentioned that because I never tried to like integrate them into my other groups. I just never did. For me, it was just like, okay, they just do their thing, and I can hang out with them. But I never thought about like bringing them with my other friends. I guess I was pretty lost in college. So like I probably didn't have like, I was trying to take care of my own, trying to figure out myself. So I didn't have like the extra initiative, like, okay, let's try to like blend these two groups. I'm just lucky I'm hanging out with all these groups. Let's try to blend them too.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's not going to be like necessarily a race-based thing. Like when I was in high school, they were like really different. There were these groups like the goths, the whatever, the people who were into like who were wearing their pants low and were into hip hop and stuff like that. And I was friends with all the groups. Like I would mix with all the groups, but I would never think of bringing them together. And I think it's the same thing. It's just these are just different groups. That's the way it is. Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, it's something we can look back at now, and when we've got a wider perspective on life, thinking that would have been a useful thing to do. That kind of would have been a cool thing to do. Not even just from a service, a good thing to do for them point of view, but it would have probably created some interesting stories also. Like, what was it like when you pulled these guys out of their comfort zone and put them in these, like, it would have created some lasting stories and valuable lessons as well. Yeah.
And in LA, I tried doing that. with very mixed success, because the problem is most of the time one or most of the groups won't show up. So you'll only show up, like, it's only one group will show up, right? They'll be like, who's coming? I'm like, oh, these people, I'll introduce you to them. And then it's like, they'll flake. But that could just be an LA thing. It might be better able to be accomplished in other cities. LA's got just a special place. It's a flaky, superficial place. But, I've done stuff where I remember I love playing cards. I love board games, right? I'm from Southwest China. So, we play a lot. Sichuan, we love to play. So, I've done board game nights or card game nights, like super fobby Chinese person, and then like a guy working at SpaceX, very white guy, and then we like Hispanic people. So I've tried doing stuff like that. This is the. I will be honest. Sometimes when groups are too diverse, it becomes a little tiring too, especially for the organizer. So you need a bunch of lieutenants to help you, and unfortunately, that's the thing when you organize, right? You can't expect too many people to step it up.
Yeah. I guess really for it to yield any positive results, the person themselves need to be open-minded enough about that, or to be seeking out such an experience to begin with. If you're really trying to pull somebody and say, hey, just give this a try, it's going to be pretty difficult. But if somebody's like, I got to get outside of my group a little bit, but I don't know how to do this, and I'm too even if they're a little bit too nervous to do it, then it's probably going to be a lot easier on somebody like you who says, yeah, okay, come along. Next weekend I got this thing going on or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think probably another way to really do it, which I didn't even think about, is how a lot of church groups have like service events. I think those would actually be even better. So like not centered around leisure, but centered around something like serving. So I think that's something I've never done, like a church service event, but I would be curious to go there to see like what type of people show up. And I would think probably you would get a lot of diversity in service events, especially if it's centered around some higher goal and something, serving the community and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's some sort of a common goal, ideally something that's tangible. And then that's a really good way to get people to kind of
not centered around play. That's what I always do. I center around play or something. Like if it's not centered around play, there's probably a higher likelihood of people showing up.
Right. Yeah. No, it's an important enough thing to think about. I mean, and figuring out, I think telling people about the importance for them to consider pulling themselves out of their little kind of comfort zone or their bubble, whatever it is really important too. Yeah. Because that really is such a loss. When a Chinese student goes to the U.S. for 5 years, they're in their own little Chinese group, and then they come back without any meaningful kind of cultural exchanges.
I've known like Chinese people who are like in the West, they're like in America or something, married to a Westerner, and still they like don't seem to be able to understand the Western perspective. So I've seen like extremes even to that, and in that case, what do you do, right? But I've had incidents like that where like he's Chinese, he married her, and he has a green card now, but like he still doesn't understand anything about Americans. And it's like,
yeah.
So where's the breakdown in cultural communication?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to turn on the air conditioning.
Yeah, sure. Do your thing. For those of you watching, this is Jerry, and I am talking with Daniel Dumbrill. Daniel's a Canadian, probably one of the coolest Canadians that all of you know and follow on YouTube. Of course, there's Justin Bieber, who's also Canadian. So Nickelback's from Canada, too. I don't know if you guys like Nickelback, but never made it as a wise man. Couldn't cut it as a poor man stealing. Tired of living like a blind man. While we wait for Daniel, maybe I'll just mess around.
Oh, what do we got going on here? Nunchucks?
And maybe what I'll do is, I was just entertaining them while you were gone, but I was gonna attempt to show off this. I'm still perfecting this. So it's juggling in one hand and nunchucks in the other hand, all right? Watch this.
All right.
So, I'm still working on it, but so for those of you watching, thank you for sticking around while Daniel went to turn on his air conditioning. Had to keep you guys entertained.
Well, I cheated. When I was over there, the problem is that the air conditioning switches, the air conditioning switches are near the beer taps. So I kind of cheated, and I made it a multi-purpose trip.
Nice. Nice. Man, and you got a little, yeah. Do you like kombucha, by the way?
I've got a buddy here who used to mainly brew beer, and he's brewing kombucha now. And I like his because he doesn't put too much sugar. The biggest issue I've had is that, store-bought kombucha, they're like full of sugar. They're really, really sugary, and I don't like sweet drinks to begin with. Like I wouldn't be able to finish a whole can of Coca-Cola. Like maybe I'd have a sip or something like that.
Yeah.
So based on what's available commercially, no, not really. But when you get somebody who makes it custom for you or something like that with like just only a little bit of sugar, I love it. Why are you making kombucha or?
I don't, but I managed because under the lockdown, I had to really find sources of like snacks. Right, I found a company that actually really makes good kombucha, and it's like very light sugar. So that was like my jam for a while. I got drunk off the kombucha one time because I drank good. I was literally drunk.
You got to drink a lot of kombucha to get drunk because
man. I drank a lot, and I drank like it came in a big container. I drank like half the stuff that was in there. So, and because I got a little drunk, I would show you the bulletproof vest. I don't want to get your channel in trouble. I was wearing a bulletproof vest for fun, and I kind of like fell asleep in it, and I woke up and my back hurt for like 3 days because you're like your spine's like twisted. Right? Most people don't realize a bulletproof vest goes down about here.
That's gotta be a scene in one of your next movies.
Yeah, I know it's gotta be
getting drunk on kombucha, wearing a bulletproof vest, while swinging nunchucks. It's gotta be. This is gonna be a good scene in a movie.
Yeah. But the lockdown does weird things to people, right? And that was pretty. That's actually a week ago. So that was right when they finally opened the parks again. And like after I did that, I said, okay, I think it's time to do yoga in the beach every day. So that's what I've been doing. With my mask on and everything, I've been doing yoga on the beach. So no more drinking kombucha to get drunk and hurt my back.
Are you much of a beer drinker or a wine
Not
drinker?
at all. I am not much of an alcohol drinker. I don't do drugs either.
So that would have made it a little bit easier too. If you're not used to alcohol, then yeah.
Yeah, I know. Alcoholism definitely went up in America during this lockdown. I don't know if it was the same in China. I assume so.
It was. It was like a lot of my friends, they had big collections of wine and stuff like that. And this was like the lockdown period was basically just going through all of their wine.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of whiskey every night too. And I have a pretty big collection of whiskey. And so all of my kind of mid-range stuff slowly got depleted over 4 months. And just the really good stuff, like some of the 30-year-old stuff or special edition stuff is left for special occasions. But I think it might actually be a legitimate problem that people face during this time. But I had I'm not much of a wine drinker, but I had some guys come in yesterday who were trying to sell me a piece of equipment that's really cool, where you put your bottles of wine in this, and then it allows us to sell bottles or wine by the glass, because the biggest problem is when you open the wine, it starts to oxidize, right? So it's got a nitrogen generator built in, so it displaces the wine that comes out with nitrogen, so the wine doesn't become oxygenated. But then also it has a self-serve option. And I think I've invented something that's going to be a really good idea, especially while people are drinking a lot of alcohol. So this machine, it's got a system where it's got a QR code on the side. It works with WeChat now, but it will work with Apple Pay and everything like that later, where customers, it's self-serve. They scan it, they say which wine they want, they put the glass under it, and then the wine comes out according to the volume. And so I was like, all right, well, you know what? If somebody wanted to buy that machine for home use, I was thinking, obviously, they don't need the payment system. I was like, oh, hold on a second. I said, what if you changed the system so that every time you wanted a glass of wine, you have to scan and you have to pay, and then that money goes to your kid's college fund.
Ooh.
So every time you have a glass of wine, you're contributing to your college fund, and your wife can't complain. You just say, hey, I'm supporting our kid's college fund. They actually like the idea. They're like, oh, that's kind of a good idea.
That's true.
Yeah. But
it reminds me, there's certain other apps where it's like they'll round up how much change you have and just like put it in a savings account or something like that. So yeah, it's like similar idea. Just take people's natural kind of, just natural living and then make it benefit them.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, joking aside, in terms of lockdown and drinking and stuff like that, I think it might be, and maybe I should have done this topic before I actually had a beer in my hand. I feel like a hypocrite, but that might develop, that might become a serious issue. And obviously, you have support networks in the West for like Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff like that. But it's definitely something to be concerned about and to keep people's eyes on. You're already seeing it, right?
Yeah.
And now
I don't know if this is the case in China, but I know the domestic violence cases in America are probably going up too. This is a very unfortunate part about the lockdown.
When you know what my position is, when you've got Jerry Liu getting drunk on kombucha wearing a bulletproof vest, America's in trouble. Yeah. But no, I mean, everybody's life is going to change after this. The world's really just not going to be the same. Not only in terms of potential bad habits picked up, but just the way that we do things. And I wonder if the idea of gathering in large crowds in compressed spaces, if people will start to, there's going to be more people that feel a sense of anxiety about that as well.
Yeah. I'm telling you one thing, man. Today I went outside just for a quick walk and I didn't have a mask on and I had anxiety. So like it's almost like conditioned society now to have a mask. Like everyone has to have a mask on. It's so weird. It's kind of like in the old days, like everyone like wore like these big bonnets and stuff like that. That's gonna be like the new fashion accessory. You have to have a mask or you're not gonna feel yourself anymore.
You know what? What I hope bare minimum happens is that during flu season, when other people know that they've got the flu or they got the cold or something like that, or they got some sort of a bug, because, obviously the thing that was drilled into everybody's minds in the beginning of this pandemic in America was that masks prevent you from spreading it. That doesn't prevent you from catching it. Now, obviously, we know that was not true. And maybe, the reason that they were saying that was because there wasn't enough mask supply anyway. So what's the use in telling everybody to wear a mask? But at bare minimum, there should be a lot more awareness about when you wear a mask, you're capturing your bacteria. And so I hope it creates a more socially responsible society where when people are sick, they'll put a mask on so that they can protect other people. Yeah. I don't know if it's wishful thinking, but
dude, I'll tell you, man, I lived in China for a few years. And then when I came to America, my biggest memory, like the first week of school, I remember I was in 5th grade, right? In 5th grade in America. None of the kids washed their hands before eating at lunch. And I'd be like, and the teachers wouldn't even allow us to go to the bathroom beforehand. So like, I was like the OCD kid. Like I would have a napkin and like, create a barrier between my hands and the food. And everyone's like, Jay, everything's clean. Why are you like, because, for those 2.5 years, if I didn't wash my hands before a meal, I'd probably get sick or something like that. This was 90s China, very different China. But like, that's why it was ingrained in me, like hygiene habits, right? I read some statistic that before the lockdown, before like America got conscious about safety and health habits again, I think 40% of men after using a public restroom didn't wash their hands.
Yeah, I've seen stats like that. It's pretty scary. I hope that I think every country could benefit from upgrading their kind of hygiene standards and thought process. I mean, even here in China, my kids' school, now they've changed all of their soap dispensers to automatic soap dispensers. You don't have to touch them anymore. I think these are the changes we're going to see. I think some of these really basic things, more automated, non-touch sinks where you don't have to touch. There's going to be a huge boost in that business for sure.
And I really hope one day Americans learn the squat posture too. Public restrooms, it's better to squat, right? You don't have your butt doesn't have to touch anything.
Foreigners have a problem doing the squat. They're not used to it. But let me tell you, when you go to a metro station or some sort of like, you're thankful for for having that option here. Your body doesn't have to touch anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, as uncomfortable of a position it is, first of all, it's actually better for your body.
It's way better for your digestion.
For everything.
But
then in terms of the hygiene side of things,
who
knows? Maybe we're going to start seeing. We're not going to see them, but that would be this could be the catalyst to start seeing squat toilets in the U.S. Where you know,
very funny story. When I was in college, there was a company that tried to bring squat toilets over to America, and it failed. It was called Blue Earth Ceramics or something like that. I don't know if their website's still up, but like they failed after a few years because nobody found a need, right? Besides a few health conscious people, a few yoga people potentially who are like, oh yeah, I'll send it to you so you can share it with people if you wanted to. But
Sure.
Besides a few health conscious people, a few yoga people, maybe a few people who grew up in Africa or Asia who like the squat position, people are like, what's the point of this, right? Aren't you going to fall into the bowl? But but it's like I think, like you said, I think now more, if they started this company now, you might actually be able to, they might actually not be able to go under.
Yeah. So this is the company, Facebook.com Bexcell. That's the one.
Yeah, Blue Earth Ceramics. I put it in your chat.
Yeah. I put it on the screen. Put it on the screen.
Nice.
Wow. That's interesting. I mean,
they tried. They tried.
There's merit to it. I mean,
you
did that company that came out. What was it called? The Squatty Potty. Did you see that? The commercial for the Squatty Potty?
I interviewed them back in the day, but their whole thing is like you just put your foot up, but then eventually you'll realize, you can actually do more, and you don't just put your foot up. But that's a good start. I got my roommate to put his foot up. We have something called the lily pad. If you guys are familiar with the lily pad, so the lily pad, you can squat all the way, or you can put your foot up. So my roommates have gone to the point where they can put their foot up. Of course, I squat all the way on the lily pad. So. Yeah, this is I could go on for hours about this. I've actually, when I applied for college, I wrote an essay like this as a joke just to see if I could get away with it.
So to explain to you what's happening here in China in terms of toilets, and now we're on the toilet topic. When you have new homes being renovated in the cities here, they're pretty much nobody's putting squat toilets in anymore. If you're in like third tier cities, fourth, that kind of range, they're still renovating new homes with squat toilets, but they're gone from the city. But you know what? At home, that's maybe it's okay. For the public washrooms, you're seeing more of the new shopping malls that are being built where they have maybe, like, if they have 6 stalls, maybe 4 of them will be traditional Western toilets and 2 of them will be squat toilets. So they still have them, and there's still a lot of people that will prefer them. Like, those will be the ones that are taken before the ones that have the Western toilets. So it's kind of like a middle ground right now. I hope they don't go all the way.
I hope they don't go all the way either.
No, because it has its it has its benefits, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe that could be a business idea for me. I will start getting people to install squat toilets in their home.
Business idea. Let me tell you what you got to really. That's maybe it's a little bit of a more difficult sell, but anything to do with automation of hygiene. So automatic soap dispensers, automatic sink. I'm sure a lot of facilities will want to upgrade their taps if you actually have to physically touch the taps to automated options. Anything to do with that. I think that after the pandemic, because this is my prediction, which I hope I'm really wrong about, but I think America is going to try to open a lot sooner than they need to, than they should, in terms of when there's a pandemic around. And I understand there's other legitimate concerns about the economy, and it's like, how is this even sustainable to stay shut this long? I don't even know how we did it here. We were shut down for 2-3 months. My brew pub was completely closed for a couple of months. The only relief we got so far was the government gave us some subsidies on the utilities, and the landlord gave us 1 month free rent. But that period of time was so crucial to get down to a point where we had at least a 14-day period where there were very limited new cases. So I think America's going to open up because they have to. It's a difficult thing to stay shut. and which is something they should appreciate, that what China did when they actually shut down their economy like this for 2 months. And there's going to be a huge spike in cases again. There's going to be a lot of people dying. And again, that's why I hope I'm wrong, but there'll be a lot of people dying. And all of a sudden, people are going to want to do whatever they can to upgrade their facilities or think about how they can implement processes that will limit the spread of this. One of those things is going to be thermometers. Just like here, every single business, when you come in, the wireless thermometers, you check their temperature, beep, beep, beep. If you have if you have a business and you're open and people are dying all around you and somebody has a fever, you're not going to let them into your shop. And in order to facilitate that, you're going to need wireless. You're going to need wireless thermometers also. These are all big opportunities, big business opportunities.
All right. Okay. The other thing for people watching from the West, Amazon Live is really taking off. So for those of you who've ever want to be like Billy Mays, hey, Billy Mays here, you got a chance to go on Amazon Live. So I see that as something because people are realizing how much potential Amazon has to sell stuff. So, they need those infomercial type guys. And I see people on Amazon doing that stuff now. Of course, China's been doing that for years.
I didn't know they were doing that.
Yeah, Amazon Live. Check it out. Amazon
They've been doing
Live.
that for a while in China, as you probably know. And they had a really big one recently with celebrities. With celebrities doing the live sales and stuff like that. But that's interesting. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I didn't know until this thing started. And then I was, I'm always trying to look at opportunities. Right? And then someone told me about, people are selling things on Amazon. I'm like, and I had to, it's hard to find it too. Like I had to search for a while before I found it. And then I went on the Amazon Live page and just salespeople all over. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. As YouTube and stuff like that, YouTube, I don't think ever is going to get e-commerce integrated. So it looks like it's giving other platforms room to kind of poach a lot of this user base. Some users want to be able to watch in a more sales type of environment. Some users want to watch in other type of ways, but it's YouTube doesn't have that e-commerce integration. All they have is the t-shirt integration, but that's different. That's not I can't buy this on YouTube, right? If I wanted to.
Yeah, that is. It seems like a massive missed opportunity on the part of Google, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they have Google Shopping, they have price comparison websites. It just makes sense. WeChat already has complete ecosystems where you don't need to even leave WeChat to buy things or to buy from influencers and things like that. To even have membership cards, like our brew pub, Tabs Brew Pub here. Our membership cards, it's all on WeChat. It's on the WeChat system.
Wow.
They don't need to leave WeChat to use their member card to pay for their beer with their balance that they have on their Taps member card. It's it's just, I don't know why it's so slow in the West when we were always, the innovators in the West. Why it's so slow to pick up on some of this stuff. It's really quite
I
weird.
remember, when I started at ByteDance, right, I even resisted going back to China to visit the home office in Beijing because I was like, I'm in America's got everything. What's the deal? But then when I went back to China, I was legitimately surprised. I was still paying in cash in Beijing, and everyone was looking at me funny because nobody paid in cash, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. Now there's arguments for why you pay in cash and stuff like that. We're not going to go into that, but the point is the technology integration wasn't even there in America. I mean, we had Apple Pay and, some people had the PayPal app and stuff like that, but it wasn't like you could go into any store and use Apple Pay or PayPal or Venmo, literally anywhere in China, even cities outside of Beijing, you can still pay in cash, but any place, even a fruit vendor on the street, right? You can pay the fruit vendor in WeChat or Alipay. It's
Oh, you can the homeless people accept WeChat.
The homeless people accept WeChat donations, exactly.
I got to tell you, I haven't seen a homeless person in Shenzhen for 8 years. I'm sure there still are, but you back before, in Futian district, you used to see a bunch of them and stuff like that. But it's really developed a lot here in that sense too. But in terms of payment technologies, there's obviously the e-renminbi coming soon too. I don't know if you know that. They're going big.
Tell me about it. I don't know about this.
Yeah, they're going big on blockchain technology, and there's going to be a digital version of the renminbi, which is on the blockchain. So it's not a blockchain. Yeah, it's not a blockchain in the traditional sense where it is a totally decentralized. There still will be central controls in Beijing, but it will be a public ledger. It will be completely transparent, and I think it will. Act as potentially a new way to settle global transactions. And people have been looking for an alternative to the U.S. dollar for a long time. The European Union, and the main problem is, the U.S. dollar has been almost like a public service to the world. It is like people trust the U.S. dollar. People trust the U.S. government. But the thing is more and more they've been weaponizing the U.S. dollar, with their sanctions and stuff like that, threatening other countries. So even though they were the only ones to walk away from the GCOP deal, whatever it is, I can't remember the abbreviation, with Iran, and the other European nations, they were saying, we have a written signed agreement here where we can't walk away from this. So when the U.S. stopped trade with Iran again, walked away from the deal, and European countries were dealing with Iran in U.S. dollars, the U.S. technically could prosecute those European banks, and they did. They've sued them for billions of dollars. And so what they did was they set up an alternate currency settlement system called Intex or something like that. It hasn't really taken off, but the point is that there are people looking for alternatives to the U.S. dollar for global settlements. And the e-renminbi might be one of them. And you know what? Facebook, what's the Facebook CEO's name? What's his name? The robotic guy.
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg. I can't believe I forgot his name. I'm so bad with names. Even Mark Zuckerberg's name, I forget. So Zuckerberg, he was onto something with Libra. So he was going to do the Libra blockchain digital currency, and it was going to be pegged to multiple global currencies. It was a brilliant idea. It was perfect, but he got blasted so badly by U.S. Congress. Like he got pulled in and he had to answer all sorts of questions. And after that point, Visa and all of these other big players who were involved in Libra, they started saying, I think we're going to back out of this. They basically crushed that innovation. And I think there is an unwritten rule also that you don't mess around with the U.S. dollar. You don't do anything that's going to challenge the U.S. dollar. That is the source of so much of America's power. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around JFK, because he was one of the first people to challenge the Federal Reserve, and also Gaddafi in Libya. He was the one who wanted to. I mean, that was the richest African nation until they had the regime change. And they were working on an African currency also, which would have been gold backed, because as you know, the US dollar hasn't been gold backed for a long time.
Exactly.
And so that would have been something tangible that could have potentially competed with the US dollar, especially in such an emerging area of the world.
Wow.
But now what you do is America doesn't have the same capability to come into China and just regime change the government before they launch this e-renminbi blockchain currency. And so it creates a lot of interesting questions about what we're going to see in the future in terms of that. I have some comments coming in saying things like USD means unlimited printing without consequences. And I more or less agree with that, with some limitations. It has very limited short-term consequences. All of these other countries that are struggling with this pandemic and economic issues, they can't just freely print money with limited short-term consequences like the US is. But you guys in the U.S., you're printing a lot of money right now, and that's going to be the other thing. Other than the weaponization of the U.S. dollar, the mass kind of printing of it is going to be something that really shakes up the global economy as well. So there should be some interesting things developing there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all those conspiracies and stuff about gold standard and stuff like that. I've heard it, and makes sense. I can't confirm those conspiracy theories, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the gold standard, when the U.S. moved off of the gold standard and the U.S. dollar moved to being based on nothing anymore, just basically confidence. It's based on confidence.
Yeah, confidence.
That's legitimate. That is actually what happened. But I think that's why it's so much more important for the U.S. to not use the U.S. dollar as a weapon, because then it gives other people an incentive to want to create an alternative. When European banks are being sued by the U.S. Simply because they made a settlement in U.S. dollars, it's really, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Currency and currency and Bitcoin and all this kind of stuff, decentralized currency, is something I'm very interested in. So if I'm
totally.
Yeah.
Totally, man. I mean, for a while, I think blockchain channels, like channels talking about blockchain, were blowing up, and I think YouTube put a lid to it because, for various reasons. But I remember in 2017, 2018, like blockchain channels were blowing up like crazy.
Yeah, you know what? The thing is with blockchain, there's a lot of scammers. There's a lot of scammers in blockchain also, creating all these ICOs and these bullshit products. But Bitcoin itself, it was created in 2008 during the financial crisis when people lost confidence in the financial system. And Bitcoin was made for events like this that we're going through now, where all of a sudden there's indiscriminate printing of money. And all of a sudden there's a hyperinflation and negative interest rates. This is what Bitcoin was made for. And I think there's a lot more institutions paying attention now. But I'm seeing other people. I think I got a lot of. I'm really proud of some of the people who are in my chat because they know what's on. They're talking about fiat currency will always go back to its original value, which is the paper they printed on. Or I got to add to that, Stephen. Or it goes to even less than paper value, because if you look at, I think it was in Venezuela, where it was cheaper to use paper currency as wallpaper than it was to actually use wallpaper. So, if you wanted to wallpaper your wall, you're better off just using money because it's worth less than the wallpaper you could buy with it.
Yeah. I think it happened in Zimbabwe too, when they had hyperinflation.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was a story of a Zimbabwean guy walking down the street with a wheelbarrow of cash.
Yeah.
And somebody saw that and they're like, "Aren't you afraid somebody's gonna steal that cash?" And he says, "No, I'd be more afraid if somebody wanted to steal the wheelbarrow."
Yeah. Man, it's a risk.
It's a risky
economics.
Thing. You know what? Associating value with something, whether it's a US dollar or whether it was way back when we decided that gold, this shiny metal, was going to have value, is based on people having a common agreement and a common understanding that this is what we're going to put our confidence in terms of a currency.
Yeah.
And so all it takes is people to say, you know what, we're going to put our confidence in Bitcoin. It's decentralized. There's no one government that is controlling it. It has a fixed inflation rate. There's only going to be 22 million Bitcoins ever printed. There's never going to be any more than that. It's completely transparent. That to me sounds like something that people could put their confidence behind. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's my take on it.
Dude, it's so interesting thinking about all currency in some ways based on confidence. Like you said, what if one day people are just like, people try to justify gold like being, it's rare, it's the perfect conductor, they give it all these like things, right? But then it's like, what if people are just like, well, who gives an F? I don't care that it's a good conductor. I don't care that it's rare.
Yeah,
I can't need gold.
It's right? About to assign it as a currency, to assign it as a store of value, that is nothing more than just a social construct.
Yeah, an example I can think of is jade. Chinese people love jade, but in America, jade's just like, it's just a cool rock that you can carve into things. Like people in America don't associate jade with as high quality like fei cui, right? That type of jade from Burma and like Yunnan and stuff. Like people in America were like, it's just a rock, but like people in China are like, wow, fei cui, it can like absorb your toxicity and stuff like that, right? So like you see, that's like an example of subjective value.
Yeah.
Jade is so jaded since U.S. Uncensored.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
when you think about psychology like that, maybe one day the world will embrace Bitcoin. Wow, that's honestly, I never thought about that, but that's why I like these discussions, man. It gets me to think.
We're in a digital era. So much of our lives are on the internet. We are an advanced technological society. It only makes sense that the evolution of currency will take a digital form. And of course, we have a digital form of our pre-existing currencies, where you can use Apple Pay and you can use WeChat, which is based on a fiat currency, based on a government currency. But I'm saying taking it one step further, where the currency itself is decoupled from any government and it is a true internet currency. I think that's what we're going to move towards. I think that's what we're going to have, and we should at least have that. So you're not at the mercy of any specific administration around the world who happens to have the dominant currency at that point in time.
Yeah. And, this type of thought isn't new. F.A. Hayek, right? Libertarians love him. Certain conservatives love him too. But F.A. Hayek, at the end of his life, I think, he really thought about monetary policies. Like, what can we do? And one of his ideas was, if we can't do the gold standard, then have competing currencies. Exactly like you said. That way, he wasn't thinking internationally. He was just thinking, like, America. He's like, that way at least one bank can't just, like, you have banks competing. But if you put this in the international scale, you have competing Bitcoins and everything. Nothing's on a whim of some corporation. Nothing's on a whim of some government's thoughts.
Absolutely, because you don't know what the inflation of the US dollar will be tomorrow. You don't know tomorrow what this particular administration or the next administration is going to decide on how much money to print. You don't know. You just have to trust that they're not going to overdo it. Yeah. With a currency like Bitcoin, a digital currency, you know up front, this is the inflation rate. This is how quickly it's going to inflate, and it will never exceed 22 million Bitcoins. Exactly. I mean, you need something like that you don't have to just put your faith in whatever government is in power in that particular time.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
And with that being said, I'm going to get some water. So I'm going to take my break. I'll be right back.
I've got to do the entertaining now. The problem is I don't have, when Jerry left, he did some entertaining with some nunchucks and some juggling and stuff like that. But I have no skills. So I could pour a beer. I could show you guys I could pour a beer. But that would require me moving the laptop. Let me take this opportunity while he's gone to look through some of the comments here. A lot of you guys, I think a lot of my guys understand the Bitcoin. I'm seeing them even use the BTC abbreviation. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who really appreciate the concerns with global fiat currencies right now. Can you do some entertaining for 5 seconds while I just do a refill?
Sure. Hey guys, for those of you tuning in, this is Jerry, and I'm talking with Daniel. And Daniel and I have been wanting to talk for a while, so it's good that this finally happened. We've all been so busy. I have a lot of other channels I run, so a lot of you probably know me from 2018. The algorithm really liked me, and then unfortunately, I understand. I explore a lot of issues that kind of aren't accepted by the mainstream, so my channel unfortunately doesn't appear in many people's recommendations anymore, which is fine. There's always opportunity in any situations like this. So shout out to all the viewers that came over from Daniel's channel, and anyone that's on my channel, please go to Daniel's channel too. Visit his chat section, talk a little too. So
somebody mentioned the petrodollar too. Yeah, that was something that was what's going to be oil-backed currency. Mm-hmm. There was some backlash from the U.S. against that also, if I remember correctly. But you know what? Can you post your channel name in the comments, and then I'm going to put it up on the screen. Some people are asking.
Yeah, sure. Let me see. I'll put this up.
Jimmy Crack Corn, you are right. Yeah. So I mean, some people refer to it as a digital currency, but it is a lot of people call it an asset or a store of value. I totally agree. I think things will change where people will potentially use it as a currency with second layer solutions, but we'll see. Anyways, this is not okay. I'm gonna this is Jerry's channel for everybody. I've got 314 people live on my channel. So if you guys want to follow Jerry, he's over there. And then on your YouTube channel, can they link through? Can they find your other channels and stuff like that? The other things
I tend to keep my martial arts channel separate, but all my other channels where it's like I'm on camera, you can find it on my Jerry channel. The reason I keep my martial arts channel separate is one, it's like my big thing, but also most people don't know my face, so I like keeping it a mystery. It's always funny when people are like, Jerry, man, I thought you were a white fat dude. I'm like, nope. No, that's why you don't judge, man. That's why you don't judge by the voice.
So, you do kind of sound like a white fat dude, actually.
I do. Absolutely. Proud of it.
That's a pretty good, big surprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess nobody would guess that I look like this also when I, they'd say, oh, you're brown. I thought you were going to be some white American or Canadian dude. And I did an interview this morning with a British guy from Hong Kong. He's he's an expat living in Hong Kong who went out with the protesters. He supported the protesters and stuff like that. And he moved a little bit more towards the middle ground. And he created an interesting group called the Green Group, which is a mix between the yellow and the blue camps. And when you mix yellow and blue, you get green, right? So and he's like more middle ground, where he's not like pro-protesters, but he's also not pro-China. And he just wants to have some rational conversation in the middle. But he made the assumption that I was American right off the bat. He's like, you're American. I said, no, I'm not American. But my Canadian accent only comes out when I'm speaking to Canadians. I did a live stream. There's a couple Canadians on there. And one of them has a real thick Canadian accent. When he starts going, oh, my Canadian accent starts coming out, eh? Then you really know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
do you ever go back to Canada still, or do you mostly stay in China now?
So I used to go every year, and then now it's like every 3 years or something like that. I haven't been back in a while. I've got 4 kids. I've got 4 boys. So when we go back, we pretty much got to charter a plane. It's it's a big trip. The last big trip I did with them is to my brother's wedding in Europe. And so we went to Greece. We did a big trip. We went to, where you go? We went to Italy. We went to Greece. We went to Amsterdam, Germany, a bunch of places with the kids, and then to Canada. That was the last time we were in Canada. That was like 3 years ago or something like that. For this year, I don't, with everything going on, we're obviously not going to be traveling anytime soon.
Yeah.
And what we'll probably do is, now that China's back to normal, we're probably going to get an RV. We'll probably get an RV and do some traveling in China, because there's a lot of amazing places. In the summer, they have a RV tour group who are going to drive from all over China to Xinjiang, and we're going to drive through Xinjiang. So that's going to be, I'm really looking forward to that. There's so many places. I've been to Tibet, and I've done some hiking through Tibet, but Xinjiang, I was so close to the border, but I haven't been yet, and I really, really want to go. The only things I know about Xinjiang are from my Uyghur friends here in Shenzhen, or Han Chinese friends who were born in Xinjiang. But that's going to be a spectacular trip. So much culture. The food is amazing. And if we do it in an RV, it'll be even better.
Wow. Yeah. If you do, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the videos, because it'll be better than those 2 guys riding motorcycles.
Oh, yeah. It's just, I don't get them. It's too extreme. There's no balance at all.
Yeah. Exactly.
I know them personally.
You do? That's hilarious.
I do. They've been here. Actually, the main guy, I don't want to use their names, but the main guy with the larger following, I've been friends with him for years. And so when I started calling them out, he was really upset with me. And we had some debates in by WeChat. I don't want to reveal exactly what we said, but he was really upset with me. And he called me a coward and stuff like that. Oh, now I'm revealing some of the stuff he said. And I said to him, man, there are a lot of other expats in Shenzhen who know him, who really find what he does completely distasteful. And they sign up for an anonymous profile name, and they go on the internet, and then they say, they kind of bash them. They say, you guys are ignorant, or this is such bullshit. You didn't see this. You didn't, that's a complete lie. I'm here using my actual name. I'm using my real name. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me to call them out, because I know them personally. I've met them, but I just think they've gone so far overboard. They've gone too extreme that it would be actually irresponsible of me to not call them out. If I was to give them a pass just because they're my friends, just because I knew them before, when I can call them out with, I feel like I could do a good job calling out what they do and exposing the issues with what they do. That would be a tragedy. That would be being a coward.
Yeah. It's funny because, when I made that video and I gave you support, a lot of I see, I love LA, right? I'm not going to say there's not bad things about LA, but a lot of people who come to LA don't like it. And it's really funny because LA is one of these places, if you don't find the right community, you don't find the right place for you, it can suck pretty bad for you, right? And that's the thing. And that's why it goes back to what we talked about earlier. When you go somewhere, you got to figure out how to like get the lay of the land, got to figure out how to really integrate, right? You got to figure that out. You can't just like expect things to come to you. You can't just expect, oh, I'm going to stick to the same routine and like, I'm just going to have it all good. Like that's rule number one when you move somewhere.
Yeah. It's a weird dynamic, but exactly. I got a question from Arthur Larson again. So I was talking about, they have a huge, I don't know if you know, it's like towards the Inner Mongolia area. There's a big party. It's like the biggest outdoor party in the world, where all kinds of RVs and all kinds of people gather, like over 1 million people, something like that. And they have music and they have things like that. It's like China's version of Burning Man almost.
Oh.
And so I was asked the question if it's canceled this year because of what's going on. I'm not sure, actually. I haven't checked. I was actually thinking of doing something where you need to know the right people to do this. What I was going to do is I was going to get a 20-foot container, and I was going to convert it into you can get 20-foot containers, which are cooled containers that are meant for like shipping food overseas and stuff like that. So I get a cooled container, and I was going to open up holes in the side with taps on them, and then put beer in there and take beer and sell beer at this event from the side of this truck. Yeah.
Smart. Yeah, that's gonna make a lot of money.
Yeah, because nobody else is selling fresh craft beer. I think they've got like the cheap bottled beer, like Qingdao and stuff like that. But this year, I wouldn't be surprised if it is canceled, especially with the kinds of numbers of people that gather in that event and how jam-packed it is.
Yeah, exactly. But I've always been curious about this, Daniel. What made you decide to open up a brew pub?
So I'm a craft beer fan. Myself, I really like craft beer. There wasn't really a lot of choice for good craft beer in Shenzhen to begin with. And so it was kind of like a side project. It was a hobby. I didn't know if it was really going to make money or anything like that. But I did it just because I thought it would be a cool project and a cool hangout place. And I'm so glad I did, because I've met so many interesting people here. I've met so many good friends here that it's been worth it just for that. And that's what I wanted to create. This I'm gonna see if I can move the laptop around to show you. Nice. So it's kind of like open concept, right? It's like you come in and you've got these middle tables here, which people can kind of stand around, and then you've got these tables here. So it's really, really open concept. So this is the kind of place where a lot of people make new friends here. Not only myself. Hold on, got to plug my laptop back in.
Nice.
So it accomplished everything I wanted to. Kind of a hangout place, a cool project, a place to drink fresh craft beer. That was my motivation. Now, I opened up additional. So this one is owned 100% by myself. The brand is mine. I had a partnership with some guys to open up some pretty big locations, which I spent a lot of time building and designing. And that was a business relationship, a partnership that fell apart. The business partner ended up being a pretty crappy guy. And that's a story I haven't told yet. But after that, I was like, that location, this is a small neighborhood shop. But the other one I opened was in a place called Coco Park. It's kind of like the central business district area of Shenzhen. And we were pulling in like revenue. We were pulling in like 2 million renminbi a month, like 300,000. That's like 300,000 US dollars. And it was like, all right, you know what? Now this has changed from a hobby to something that actually could make a pretty good living. But when the partner saw how much money was coming in, I was a 60% owner and he was a 40% owner. The greed took over, and things fell apart. He took it over, and he turned it into a piece of crap. And now it's like pretty much gone. Even after he tried to take it over himself, because he thought it was easy. He thought, okay, I've done all the hard work, I built it, and everything like that. And you get these stories all over the world with business dealings going bad or getting involved with the wrong people.
Yeah.
Now there's a couple of guys who are opening up franchise shops. They're opening up lots of little shops, little neighborhood shops, which have the same feel as this. It's a place, nobody here has big homes, so they're not going to have a really good common area in their home where they can invite friends over. So having a really kind of neighborhoody place downstairs where you can go down and hang out with your friends is what the goal is of a lot of these new smaller shops. And so they're opening a lot more of them, and I'm quite flexible with them. They're pretty much just buying the beer from me. They're using my brand name. I've signed something that they're allowed to use my brand name. Nice. And so that might create this into something bigger. But honestly, if this just stays as a little kind of a cool side project, which I enjoy, a nice place to meet people, I'm already happy with that.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so excited for you, man. I'm so glad you made it work in China. It's, I made it work in LA, right? I had no family in LA, so that's different from going all the way to China to a different culture. But I totally can, in an analogous way, get how it feels to like completely go somewhere different and just build something.
Yeah, I mean, no matter where you go, whether it's the next city over or the next country over, I mean, going somewhere where you don't know anybody and you got to start new, that's a big thing to do. Obviously, adding in the completely different culture is a whole different element as well. But that's not something I would look at as a barrier for me. That's something that makes even more exciting for me. That there's a chance to just learn something so different. And I think a lot of people who come over to China, they've got to look at it the same way. They don't got to come over here and say, let me see how good China is. Let me see how bad China is. Because as soon as you're saying that, you're coming with your pre-existing framework, and you're not willing to, you've already admitted you're not going to change your framework. What is good, what is bad is bad. You've already decided that you're the arbiter of that word. Yeah. And this is where, this is the mistake that a lot of these people make who end up going back and just shitting on China all day long in their, content. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you just, like you said, just like, take out all biases. Like, I moved to LA in 2012 for a summer just to check it out. And back then I was like, I want to see how good it is. Right. And then I was like, I was already biased. Right. And then in 2014, I went to LA for a little bit. And again, I was like, okay, I had another bias. And then eventually 2015, when I moved here for good, I'm like, let's just not have a bias. Let's just like make it work here. And then, and people were like, yeah, it's hard to make friends in LA, which is true. But I've met some of my closest friends in LA, most people are like, yeah, you make your closest friends in middle school, or you make your closest friends in college or whatever. I made my closest friends here in LA. So like, because I came with this mentality, I'm just going to make it work. I'm not going to like have this skew or that skew or whatever. And I think for people who want to go to China, it's the same thing. Try your best. I know it's hard. Try your best to not think like, it's red China, it's this. Oh, blah, 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 blah. The Chinese women, they'll flock over. No, don't think like that. Just be like, I'm just going to a new city. I'm gonna make it work.
Yeah, I guess the ideal situation is like, people talk about like integration and stuff like that, and that's an important piece, is becoming integrated enough where you at least understand society, but still holding on to whatever it is you brought from wherever you came, because you're not expected to just completely switch to be an exact copy of the people and the new neighborhood you're in or whatever it is. And I think that's an important part that people should remember to hold on to as well. Yeah. So, that's an advantage you have over your neighbors. If you're living around other people in LA who's never really lived outside of LA, that's an advantage that you should hold on to, that you're not necessarily going to completely integrate and take on all of their habits and all these things. And you just become more dynamic and you become more global thinking, really.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many differences in cultural standards also. So here in China, people don't really get like road rage like you have in the West. Mm-hmm. You have incidents of road rage, but it's not as common. I can't remember which comedian it was. They were talking about how weird road rage is in the West. And he was a guy from the West, and he was talking about, it's like, when you're in the traffic and somebody cuts you off or something like that, you're so willing to like, put your middle finger up at them and say, oh, fuck you and stuff like that. And it's like, but we're like, that's another human being driving that car. It's like, if you were in the elevator and somebody bumped into you in the elevator, would you put your middle finger up in their face and say, fuck you? get out of my face. No, it's because you have this, barrier of these cars, and it's like a little bit more disconnected. But you don't get that as much here, and it's a weird thing. So I remember when I took my wife for the first time to the U.S., we did a big road trip from Santa Cruz all the way up to Vancouver. We went along the coast. We went through the redwood forest or pine, whatever they're called. We saw the sand dunes in Oregon, and then we went to Astoria to see the house where the Goonies was filmed, and then crossed over the bridge to Washington State, and then up to Vancouver, and then northern BC. But while we were in San Diego, I remember there was a guy. We needed to get off at an exit. And I had my indicator on. I wanted to cross over, and this guy like completely cut me off where I almost completely missed the exit. I still managed to go, and then there was a guy who pulled up behind in a pickup truck, and then he pulled up to the guy beside me, and he started swearing at him and yelling at him. And my wife was like, because we weren't angry. It's like whatever. We got cut off. Like I got used to the Chinese way. It's like whatever. It happens. And she's like, why is that guy angry at him? And he's like, oh, because he cut me off. And then I was like,
nice, or not nice, maybe.
Somebody's coming in. I don't think they know we're closed right now. But after I got cut off, she was yelling at him. He's like, why is he angry? And I was like, because that guy in front cut us off. And he's like, yeah, but it's got nothing to do with him. And it's like, that was the level of road rage where somebody's even going to get angry on your behalf. And it was just this foreign idea. Oh, 我们6点会开。6点，对，6点会开。现在如果再过那个10分钟，会有一个人，等一下我可以叫他过来。你要打包吗？是的。有自己的啤酒，对，自己酿的。你是要，如果你那个6点过来说会好一点，对。我在这里很久，是我现在在录一个箱，我在跟一个人做直播，但是没事，如果你是现在要打包吗？还是？他想要。哦，嗨。他想买你的啤酒尝一下，但是我I can give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Do your thing. Take care of her.
Yeah.
I will do some more nunchucks or something.
That's okay. If you want to take a takeaway, I can help you do a takeaway. Do you like IPAs and stuff like that, or? Do you like IPAs? Have you had IPAs before? Yeah. Because IPAs are a little more bitter, right? I can give you a little bit to go, and then at 6 o'clock we open. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is going to be a little bit more. Yeah. At 6 o'clock we'll be open, and they'll have all the glasses going and stuff like that. Give me a free.
For those of you watching, Daniel's taking care of a customer real quickly, so I'm just going to mess around while he takes care of the customer.
This one is number 12, so it's an end of days IPA. Yeah. I'm doing a live stream with a YouTuber from California. So YouTube. Yeah. We're live on YouTube.
Actually, while we're at it, guys, I might as well give you guys a little public PSA. So a lot of us under this lockdown, we're kind of looking down at our phones. So a lot of us are developing a lot of muscle and balance. So what I recommend you guys do is, so keep your chin the same angle, right? And then do what are called chin tucks. Check this out. So you go. See that? These are called chin tucks. And what they do is they develop these muscles back here. Because what happens is when you're looking down at your phone, you're doing this, there's certain muscles, especially, they're getting worked out too much, and there's other ones that are getting weak. So one of the first things to do is just practice tucking your chin, but keep the angle. So don't tuck down, think like this plane. So tuck your chin. So these are called chin tucks. So do like 10 of them a day, and do it like 3 times a day, or that way develop some of these muscles that are weak. Daniel, telling viewers about chin tucks and stuff like that, because a lot of our muscles are imbalanced because we're always on the phone, especially under lockdown. We're on the computers and stuff like this.
Yeah,
So
seriously.
I'm telling people to do chin tucks because, I was a pretty big nerd in high school. So I had pretty bad forward head posture, even in college and stuff. So, I've been trying to make my neck stronger because, if your neck is imbalanced, you get hurt much more easily and stuff like that. And you're asking for a lot of potential problems in the future when you get older. So make sure, look up chin glides or chin tucks for all viewers watching.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that's what we're going to be doing at home, right? We're going to be on our technology. That's how we're going to be connecting to the world, is through all these devices. And that's I've had to keep myself in check too. I've been using my phone way too much during the lockdown as well.
Yeah, and in general, if you guys have to do one exercise under lockdown, do exercises that work out your upper back, because a lot of us have weak upper backs. Because first of all, it's muscles we don't see, right? So when we look at the mirror, we can't tell that we have weak upper backs. But also by looking down, by overemphasizing certain muscles, our upper backs really need the workout. So look up like muscles to work on your upper back, because your body, your head, your neck will thank you if you have a strong upper back. So
Yeah.
for the day.
Yeah. That's some good advice. What do you think about what do you think about like acupuncture and all this kind of stuff? Are you into any of that stuff or not really?
I am not, but I'm not opposed to getting some acupuncture and some Thai massage after all this is over.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you saw I have an interview on my YouTube channel where I interviewed one of the Wuhan doctors from the front lines, and he mentioned that the Chinese medicine was a really important component of the treatment, the whole treatment kind of thing. And I know a lot of people, they look at Chinese medicine with so much skepticism that they're just not willing to. They're like, oh no, that's like whatever. There's not. When you think about it, thousands of years of trial and error with Chinese medicine, how could they not have hit on a few things that were kind of really have some merit? I think it's more difficult to believe that there isn't a Chinese medicine that would do good. I think it's a similar kind of a thing like with blockchain we were talking about before. There's probably a lot of scammers in that field, but in terms of the stuff that works, I think there's a lot of things that people should really consider.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. So, I had neck problems for a while because I got hurt when I was in Hawaii, and I had whiplash, right? So the whiplash just wasn't going away, and eventually I went to another doctor. She was a more younger doctor in LA, and she's like, "Well, one thing you can do is go get acupuncture." And I was like, "Whoa, a Western educated doctor is saying that. That is pretty cool."
When we had our first child, we were talking. We watched a video, which was one of the single best things we watched to prepare us for childbirth, and it was called "Laugh and Learn About Childbirth." And it is a foreign doctor in New York. I think she's a doctor, and she talks about the whole process about a childbirth and all of the things that could possibly go wrong, what happens after it goes wrong, and stuff like that. And she actually she said that one thing she noticed through her entire career, and she's up there, she's pretty old, is that out of all of the patients in the hospital, the main difference between Chinese patients and foreign patients is Chinese patients would never accept the cold water. They'd only accept hot water. Yeah, the Chinese, they don't drink cold water, they drink hot water. And they said that consistently they were always recovering faster, whether it be from a cesarean section or a natural birth and stuff like that, but they always had better stats. And I mean, that could be related to other things, but she was actually starting to think some of these traditions and some of these ways of thinking are potentially have a little bit of merit. We're talking about a culture and a society with thousands of years of experience here. So maybe we should listen to a few of them. And when you look at Western medicines, a lot of Western medicines, they're based on natural elements from the environment, of course, whether it be from certain mushrooms or certain, blue blood from crabs or something like that. There are elements that come from nature to begin with, but they're packaged in this, laboratory kind of an entire different package. But a lot of the underlying elements are linked to the same things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was Eric Weinstein, another philosopher, in fact, a Penn alum like me too. Eric Weinstein was talking about how a lot of these like academic journals, these peer-reviewed journals, are full of crap too. Like a lot of this, like what Western kind of research, what Western medicine bases itself on. We have the method, we have the scientific method. A lot of those like journals, a lot of those researchers don't even follow any of that.
Well, let me tell you also, you know what? Through this COVID-19 thing, the Chinese, they came out with, so obviously the Chinese government, they published the genome sequence on January 10th or January 11th. It was really early. They genome sequenced this really quickly. And then they continue to release all kinds of information and data about what findings they had. And it was really funny to see, like, whether it be in terms of the ability for feces and stuff like that. When you're flushing the toilet, the spray that comes up, it has the potential to carry the COVID virus. The potential, there's all kinds of stuff. There's some gross stuff too. The potential for it to enter your eyes also. All of this stuff, they've already mapped out. They've already published. I mean, even Jack Ma released a huge comprehensive guide about COVID-19 and about how to handle it, what are the best practices are for the hospital. But what you had was, with at least a 30-day delay, minimum 30 days, you started seeing Western medical journals and Western articles coming out saying, oh, this can enter through the eyes. And it's like, the Chinese said this like 30 days ago or 60 days ago, whatever it was. Oh, we got to be careful with sewage treatment. It's like the Chinese already said this, like it was over and over and over. They're acting like they were the ones who discovered this. And I feel like for medicine, a lot of it is the same way, where they're using a lot of evidence and history and case studies from thousands of years of Chinese history to figure out what elements might work in certain medicines, and then act like it's a brand new discovery. And then just say that the Chinese steal everything and they're stealing technology and pretend like, everything's invented in the West. Yeah,
exactly. It's pretty funny. A lot of you think about like antiviral medication, right? Antiviral medication, the bajiao that Chinese people cook with. Some antiviral medication thing comes from that. So it's right, like you said, Daniel, a lot of this stuff, you could say, oh yeah, it's just like 5,000 years of placebo, but probably not. Probably not. There's probably a little bit more than just a placebo effect. Oh, those were customers. Some of the audience wanted them to come on live, Daniel. I don't know if they want to come on live.
334 people.
What's up, guys?
Hello, how are you?
Yeah. Where are you from?
Mauritius.
Mauritius. Oh, very nice. Have you been here for long in China?
6 months.
6 months? Oh, cool. Yeah. Did you like that? What do you think of that?
It's great.
Yeah. You hear that, guys? The beer's good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Fresh, very crisp.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
Questions for that? So.
Yeah, I'll be free a little bit later, and then we're open at 6. We're open at 6, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think.
we'll try to.
Do you want to add my WeChat or something? Do you have WeChat?
No, not this phone guy. So.
Oh, really? If you, you add mine. 你可以扫我的。
哇，这里面没信号哎。
没有吗？哦，有 WiFi。哎，我这边。
And I'll tell viewers one thing. WeChat was the first one to allow scans. A lot of you use Instagram, right? You can scan people's barcodes. WeChat had it first. That's one thing I do give WeChat credit for. I remember when I saw that Instagram started integrating the QR code too. I was like, whoa! But WeChat had it way before. I was telling them about scanning WeChat codes and how Instagram eventually had it too.
With the QR codes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Man,
Mauritius.
by the way,
That's the first time I've ever met anybody from Mauritius.
what's up?
I said that's the first time I've ever met somebody from Mauritius.
Yeah, I don't even know where that is.
I didn't want to admit it, so I'm glad you admitted it first.
Yeah.
Let's look that up. Where is that?
Yeah, I'm looking this up right now. Mauritius. Oh, it's Indian Ocean. Okay.
Oh,
Southeast
okay.
coast of the African continent.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
It's off the coast of Madagascar. It's like that's so.
That sounds. Yeah, he wanted to talk with me, and so I added whoever he was with the WeChat. So that'll be interesting. I'd like to find more out more about him.
It could be an interview topic. Yeah, you guys can talk.
So I had another super chat from Arthur Larson. He says nobody in the USA knows about the Alibaba COVID guide. That is, I don't know if you know about it. I don't know if you heard about it. Jack Ma.
Honestly, I haven't heard about it either.
Holy crap! This is unbelievable. It is one of the most comprehensive pieces of information out there for fighting COVID-19. It was in association with a hospital, and it has incredible amounts of detail about what works, what doesn't work, all kinds of stuff, what kinds of medicines work, what kinds of pressures they used on the ventilators and stuff like that. Like wow. This thing is like, how could anybody in the world who is in the medical environment not have read this? It's an absolute catastrophe that they haven't.
Wow.
It's a lot of effort went into that. And it's available free to the public online. Whoever's listening, whoever's watching now, you can search for it, for the Alibaba COVID-19 guide. And it is a massive PDF document. So, yeah.
Wow. So interesting. I'm glad you mentioned this, man. Yeah, it's my first time hearing about it, so I'm gonna look it up later.
Yeah.
Wow. Adriano on my end is from Mauritius, so we have two viewers.
Oh, look at that! Yeah. Wow.
Awesome. Adriano, make sure to go to Daniel's profile too if you haven't checked out his profile, and go follow him too.
So I got some comments here, and maybe Adriano can reply. So I got some comments on my channel saying Mauritius nowadays is colonized by India imperialists, and let me see anything else. No other Mauritius related comments. But
yeah,
I mean,
Adriano,
I've heard
let us know, man.
the country name before, but I never actually looked at where it was located. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm saying. You know, I just finished telling you about when you have a bar, you meet all kinds of interesting people from all over the place. And we literally had that proven on camera right now.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So I gave him a free IPA. He liked it. He liked the beer. And, you know, our signature IPA, it won Lonely Planet's Guide as one of the 5 top beers in China. We were listed as one of the top 5 beers in China, and that was our beer. And it's called Shijimura, End of Days.
That's awesome.
Well, you know what, man? We named that beer 5-6 years ago when we opened, and I can't think of a more appropriate name for a beer than End of Days right now during the pandemic. Like this should be like the signature pandemic beer. And that's what I'm drinking right now.
Wow. Man. The End of Days.
Yeah. Dramatic name. We had some really nice artwork done up for it too. I don't know if we've got we don't have it here. I have oh yeah, we do. Hold on.
It's also cool to see the Wi-Fi password. Top spin.
Oh, everybody knows the secret now. So
yeah.
So the end of days IPA, you can see the hands coming out of the graveyard grabbing the hop. Yeah, with the and there's a little secret too. I don't know if it's printed on. It is. So this is the first time ever I have revealed this secret. Not even my friends here know this. And this is going to be this is a big reveal, actually. If anybody actually watches this video to this point, because we've been going on for a long time, we've been going on for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So I told you about the Coco Park bar, the story where I got screwed over, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but what I did was when I designed this artwork, on this gravestone, the words Coco are written on the gravestone. to represent the death of the Coco Park bar. It's printed into my artwork for this beer.
Wow.
And yeah, it's on there. It says Coco, but it's so subtle that nobody would ever notice it. The only way they would notice it is if I actually mention it. And this is the first time other than the designer who actually designed this for me, nobody else knows. I don't even think my wife knows that I put that on there. So congratulations to anybody who stayed this long to listen to us babbling. You just learned a big Taps Brew Pub Shenzhen secret.
The secret of his beer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Wow.
You'll have to come over here sometime.
Yeah, I will. I mean, once this is all over, totally down, man.
Yeah, you are. So your family is from Sichuan, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Part of my family's from Sichuan. The other part's from Anhui.
Okay.
And then I have some family in I think Jiangsu.
Oh, Jiangsu. Okay.
Yeah, I think I have some family in Jiangsu, and then I have some family in Shanghai. But I have no family in the south, so I've never been to Shenzhen. It's on my bucket list, man. I want to see the Silicon Valley of China.
You gotta look me up when you come. So, so Anhui, Anhui is a nice place for. Anhui is one of the most underrated provinces in China for tea. They have some of the most amazing,
dude.
tea.
Guapian, yes.
Yeah,
Guapian.
Lu An Guapian, yeah.
You see, guys, this is why you guys should listen to Daniel when he talks about China. Like, Daniel knows China. I'm sure those two other people that often bash China, that a lot of people turn to, do not know about Luan Guapian. That's awesome.
There's a lot of Chinese that don't know about Luan Guapian.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful tea. A lot of the Luan Guapian, what they'll do also is they'll actually, so they bake them.
Yeah.
They bake them and they're really flat. And some of the producers, what they'll do is they'll remove the veins from the leaf before they bake them, so that it really gives you a delicate green tea flavor. They also have a Qimen Hongta is also from Anhui. That is a beautiful tea with kind of really fruity flavors, and naturally they don't actually add fruit. They have some nice white teas from Anhui. Anhui, number one underrated place in China for really good tea.
Yeah. And it has a lot of history too that people don't realize. Like lots of great history from the Warring States era and stuff like that. Pretty cool. Yeah. And of course from the Kingdoms era. Yeah.
And then from Jiangsu, one of the best signature teas from Jiangsu is Biluchen.
I don't think I've had it. I've only been to Jiangsu once, so.
Okay, so Biluchen, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might be, because I'm just going off my head here, I think it's mostly from Suzhou. Maybe there's some people here in my chat who know a little bit more than, somebody sent me a super chat asking for my bar name and location. Anybody in China, just search for Taps Beer on WeChat, TAPSBEER. I think I just said two E's. You know how to spell beer. So Biluchen is a really special tea. It has like a really kind of so somebody posted it here. Benji, hey, nice to see you here. It's a curled leaf green tea, and it's got a really kind of like a pastry-like flavor to it. It's really hard to describe. Like I want to say like spinach pastry, but that's going to make it sound like unattractive. But it honestly is a really unique tea. If you were to look at, you were trying to find unique teas around China that are very different from everything else, Biluchen is one of them, and that's from Jiangsu province.
Cool.
And Sichuan, the best thing out of Sichuan is the food. I cannot get enough of the Sichuan food, and you have your specialties in Sichuan also, obviously by the different areas. So, so Chongqing is Chongqing, but Chongqing, you've got Chongqing and Chengdu are both popular for hot pot, and there's always a battle of the two sides in terms of whose hot pot is better. It's like if you get into an argument between, Chongqing versus Chengdu in terms of food, that's like Civil War level arguments you're getting into.
Yeah.
It's worse than politics,
Yeah.
But actually, what I like from I'm not going to say which hot pot I like better, because that's, like I said, that's worse than talking about politics. But I got to tell you, the barbecue in Chongqing I really like. And they do something really special, which a lot of people are going to find very unappealing, which is pig brains. They do a kao hua. So what they do is they put the pig brains into like a foil, into a tin foil, and they wrap it up with all the spices or whatever they want to put in it, and they wrap it up, and then they basically roast it. And it is like, I've always said, it's like China's frog wall. It's like the frog wall of China. Then if you go over to Chengdu, they've got their own things they like. They like rabbit head. Rabbit head is one of the specialties in Chengdu, and you'll get your different kind of things. But in terms of food to explore, Chongqing and Sichuan are amazing places to go if you like spicy. If you like spicy food.
Exactly. It was so funny because I normally don't eat spicy food. When I went to Chengdu last year, man, it spiced my colon so bad that like it hurt. It seriously, my colon hurt. I thought I had appendicitis. It hurt for like 2 weeks. That's how spicy it is, man. For someone, because I don't eat spicy food normally. So, I went back to like, Jerry, can you handle it? I'm like, yeah. And like, I can't handle it here, but then once it was in my colon, it hurt for 2 weeks, man. I literally thought I was going to die of appendicitis.
So I've always liked spicy food, but the only spicy food that ever caught me off guard like that was, so in Canada, I had an ex-girlfriend who was from Sri Lanka. And let me tell you, people from Sri Lanka, they eat spicy food, like really crazy. And it's a different kind of spice too. Like my girlfriend's grandfather, what he used to do is he used to take chili peppers, like really hot chili peppers, and he used to put it in a bowl, and he used to mash it. He used to put a little bit of salt in it, mash it into a paste, and then mold it into a ball, and then eat the ball. That's it. That was his snack, a mashed chili ball with a little bit of salt. Like they eat really spicy food. But Chongqing and Chengdu, I mean, you gotta like the spice to really appreciate the food there.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to viewer Patrick Kingsbridge. Thank you for the super chat. That was great. Thanks. He likes these long talks, and yes, I think I'm probably going to just do these long talks more on this channel. And just these are fun. So thanks, Patrick, for giving the super chat, and make sure to check out Daniel's channel if you haven't yet.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad people are. We've still got on my channel. We've still got over 300 people in the chat. So we got quite a few people that are following us along. But so in terms of spicy food in America, I guess in California, do you have much of an opportunity to?
Not at all. Well, I'll tell you that one story, man. There was a Sichuan restaurant that opened. A Sichuan restaurant. First of all, calling it out for calling itself a Sichuan restaurant. But I had this friend who like did this like Mandarin meetup, and so like he wanted to go eat there, and I wasn't gonna say anything, but they asked me, is it authentic? I'm like, sorry, this is not authentic at all. You asked me, or else I wouldn't have said it. I was so disappointed. The food was so bad. Like, it was generically good for, like, Chinese food, right? But you can't call yourself Sichuan. And, like, it was, like, barely spicy. Like, I'm honestly not even very authentically Chinese or not authentically Sichuan when it comes to spiciness. I'm a wuss. And if I can't even feel it, you're doing something wrong. Like, I'm seriously the biggest wuss when it comes to Sichuan food. Like, everyone can call me out if they ever eat with me in Sichuan. They'll be like, probably, Daniel, you could probably eat more spice than me. But this Sichuanese restaurant in Westwood's where UCLA is, it had Sichuan Pavilion or whatever it was called, and the food was so not spicy that I didn't even feel it was spicy. Like, that's a problem right there.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, when you look at, for example, if you're in Shenzhen and you have like Hunan food, it's even when it's going from Hunan to Shenzhen within the same country, it's going to completely change. It's not real Hunan food anymore.
Yeah.
And you know what? You do have to adapt to your local kind of mass market to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get some interesting things that come out of that. I remember the most interesting thing for me was, so a lot of people think fortune cookies are a Chinese thing. And literally, like, no fucking Chinese restaurant in China has fortune cookies. But there was a restaurant in China that in Shanghai that brought back American Chinese food, like General Tao's chicken and all this kind of stuff, and fortune cookies. And it was like, that was like so interesting to Chinese people here. It was like, wow, this is American Chinese food. It's like from a completely different world. Yeah. But on to my main point, like, when Hunan food migrates from Hunan to Shenzhen, even within the same country, you're going to get it completely different. So how the heck is anybody going to expect it to survive and be authentic when it crosses an ocean? Yeah. It's just not going to happen.
The thing is, I was spoiled because when I grew up in the DC area, there was one restaurant in the DC area. It sucks now, but when I was in middle school and high school, man, the Sichuan food there was authentic. It's called Joe's Noodle House, Le Mei Xiaoguan. But apparently, since I went off to college, it changed ownership or something, and they realized they weren't making as much money, so they just decided Americanize. But I grew up in the DC area eating authentic Sichuan food when I needed to eat Sichuan food.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah,
but it's rare, and I guess I just had unrealistic expectations. So when I saw a Sichuan restaurant in LA, it just disappointed me. And for me, I was like, well, LA's closer to China than the DC area, so maybe less got lost when it came over, but it doesn't work that way.
So for me, somebody said in my chat, Grace D said, "Hey, I know that restaurant. The restaurant you just mentioned, she knows also." So we've got somebody in our chat who knows the restaurant you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Grace's daughter was in that Chinese movie I was part of. So I have Grace on WeChat. I'll contact you tomorrow. It's awesome to see you. And
nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot I want to catch up with Grace on.
So with food, I made some really good friends who own restaurants here. So some of my best friends in Shenzhen they own a Hunan restaurant, and they're from Yiyang, the Yiyang area of Hunan, a small town called Nanshan, very close to the Hebei border, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember, but anyways. What I used to do is I used to eat meals with their staff for the staff dinner. I would enjoy the staff dinner more than I would the actual, restaurant menu ordered meals, because that was way more authentic. Yeah. Now, however, in the case of hot pot and in the case of other things, there's other elements that also affect it. So when you're making hot pot in Chongqing, and if you make the exact same thing anywhere else in China, no matter you use exactly the same ingredients from exactly the same supplier, it's going to turn out different. And one of the big reasons is because of the water. In terms of the hardness of the water, the mineralization of the water, the pH of the water, all of this stuff matters. Yeah. So, you've got a lot of... So in Shenzhen, I think we have pretty soft water, if I remember correctly. But whatever the case may be, that's also going to have a huge influence. It's the same thing for the beer industry. So I understand that quite well, is that if you are making a beer in one place and you open up another place somewhere else or another factory somewhere else, if you want the beer to taste exactly the same way, you have to manually remineralize the water so that the water profile matches the same way. And with hot pot, obviously hot pot water is a big part of the ingredients. You're going to have that difference as well too, which I think maybe some people might find interesting.
Yeah. When I was in Philly, Philadelphia has a beer tour, right? And I remember hearing a similar thing about how back in the day, like some of the authentic Philly beer, it had to be made in a specific type of wood container. Like part of the taste came from that wood container.
So there are beers like that. So there are beers like that, especially from Belgium, where they're wild fermented beers. And so there are a lot of beers that, one of the important ingredients of beer is the yeast. That's the thing that's going to ferment the beer, that's going to eat the sugar and turn it into both a CO2 and alcohol. And so with the wood barrels, what a lot of places are relying on, especially Belgian beers, is they're relying on a wild infection. They're relying on an infection from the barrel, and that infection is going to act as the yeast. I know an infection doesn't sound very appealing, but for wild beers, that's what it is. And it's going to be that infection, that bacteria that eats your sugar and turns it into, creates your alcohol and stuff like that. So back before people understood how beer was made, like in Egyptian culture, thousands of years ago, when people were making beer, what they used to do was they used to make the beer, they used to put it in these pots, and then they would pray to the alcohol gods or the beer gods, whatever it was, so that it would ferment, because it wouldn't always ferment. But what they didn't realize, what they were relying on and waiting for, was they were relying on the right bacteria to infect the wort before it became beer. It's called wort, and ferment it and eat the sugar and turn it into alcohol. So that's probably what it is with the wood barrels. The wood probably carries a specific kind of a bacteria which is going to act as the fermenting agent.
Wow, that's so interesting. And the other thing I was going to add to the whole hardness and softness of water is that America in general has very hard water, and LA's water is extremely hard, man. We have a shower filter. Here's the really weird part. Before we got our shower filter, the shower would just randomly, the drain would just clog all the time. That's how much mineral was in the water. When you boiled the water, the tap water, there was so much white stuff like calcium and all that would just come out of it boiled. So like after we got the shower filter, our shower has never ever clogged since then. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, that's where we were in. I grew up just north of Toronto in a small town called Newmarket, which is the same place that Jim Carrey is from. You know Jim Carrey, you must know.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey. Yeah. And there's a few other famous people that are from around there. I think Mike Myers is from near there, and John Candy. I don't know if you know John Candy.
Yes, John Candy.
Yeah, they're all from my small town. Well, my small town a little bit north of it.
Wow.
And we had really, really hard water there too. So it's the same kind of thing. I think when you're relying, especially if you're relying on well water, it's going to be quite hard. That's the piece I'm not sure about. Some people are mentioning the fluoride. The fluoride is important too. The fluoride content. All of these things make a difference, especially in beer, because beer is like 96% water or whatever it is. But also for hot pot and preparing actual food, it makes a difference as well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I will give credit to LA Water, because when I first moved to LA in 2015, I drank tap water. I drank LA tap water for like 6 months, and I was okay. So, that's the one good thing. As much as LA tap water is hard, at least it didn't get me sick. Well, I know.
Yeah, so we would do the same. We would do the same in Newmarket also. We would do the same, and I'm not sure if the tap water is safe to drink here or not, but it's just not something you do in China. Like we've just adapted to local culture here, and you don't in Shenzhen we don't drink the tap water. I think based on the reservoirs they get it from, and if you're living in a new complex and the piping is good, I'm pretty sure it's okay. But we still buy our. It's a habit now. We buy our 20-liter, big containers of water and put them on our water dispensers. But for tea, you don't want to use tap water for tea because of the fluoride and because of all those other additions. It's not gonna make a nice cup of tea.
Yeah, I learned that really good teapots, the type like really legit teapots, you're not even supposed to wash them. So like you brew the tea in it, and you don't wash.
Well, you're not supposed to use soap. You're definitely not supposed to use soap. And so I got a lot of like the real intense tea lovers who really understand tea. They took a big issue with my last video, because my last video, I like prepare.
Uh-oh. Did we break up? Oh no. Are you still there? Are you still there, Daniel? Oh no. Huh. Let's see if we can get this back. Oh, there you are. You're back. What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. You're back.
Okay.
You're back.
Okay. Yeah. I had to
I was worried for a second.
Yeah. So the way I prepare tea, can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Okay?
I can hear you very well.
Okay. it's kind of like halfway in between Chinese style and foreign style, where it's still got like some gong fu cha elements. But I like to drink my big cup of tea. So what I did was I used those. It's a plunger system. It's got a plastic top and a glass bottom, and I drank it from a glass cup. And a lot of the real people who know a lot about teas, they rightfully were outraged at me. And I know the proper way to make tea, but this is just the way I like it. But you're right. First of all, it tastes better from ceramic. And when you do have ceramic pots, you're not supposed to wash them with soap, because every single brew you make with your ceramic pot is actually adding character to the pot itself.
Exactly.
Which will have some benefit will benefit to your future brews. And you most certainly don't want to put soap in ceramic pots to wash them. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do brew tea that way also. But in terms of my daily big cup of tea that I want, I use the most crude plastic, gong fu style tea with full leaves. And I knew when I made that video, there's going to be a lot of people who are upset, but I don't care. That's the way I make tea, and I'm still enjoying it. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, is that I'm enjoying that cup of tea.
Tea bags. So if you guys are going to criticize him, I use tea bags. So
that I have no sympathy for. That I cannot make any excuses for, and I cannot relate with you, and I cannot condone your behavior.
Man. I actually learned how to make boba, so I know how to make boba now. It's pretty cool. I have these tapioca balls there that if I ever want to have boba tea, I can do it.
So I actually made some tea cocktails here. I made some tea cocktails with jasmine tea and passion fruit and stuff like that. And what I wanted to do was, because when you look at these like bubble teas and tea cocktails and stuff like that, the tea is almost like an afterthought. It's not because it's covered up with so much sugar and tapioca balls or whatever else, that the tea becomes almost a secondary thought. But what I was doing was I was making craft tea cocktails where I was using really nice whole leaf, and I was brewing on our brew system, like in Gong Fu style tea, and making these tea cocktails. And it's still a little bit early to do something like that, although you're seeing a lot of 5-star hotels now making some really high-end craft tea cocktails. I think there's going to be an eventual move towards something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll tell you one thing for any Chinese audience or people who like Chinese food, because I live in Santa Monica, I live in a pretty white area, and I don't have a car, and it's pretty hard to get to the Asian areas of LA. The one snack I miss is 绿豆糕. I think it's called mung bean cake in English, maybe green bean cake. Mung bean cake,
right,
绿豆糕. But I've been trying to find how to get 绿豆糕, and I looked on Amazon, and the thing is, if I ordered on Amazon, by the time whatever I ordered would get here, the lockdown would probably be over. So that wasn't a good option. And so I went online trying to ask people, like, how can I get 绿豆糕? So if any one of you have any, answers to this, because there is one, the Century City, pretty nice area, but unfortunately, the one Asian snack store there is closed because the mall's closed under the lockdown. So I can't get my 绿豆糕 there, and I can't drive all the way to St. Gabriel Valley. I mean, maybe I could. I don't know. So if anyone has any answers, maybe if someone wants to send me some 绿豆糕.
So that's my, so I have no intention to move back to Canada anytime soon. And that if I ever wanted to, if I all of a sudden said, I really want to, move back to Canada, that's my wife's biggest concern, is finding the ingredients that she likes. She has no interest to move to Canada because she knows that, especially a lot of those spicy ingredients for making certain hot pots or stir fries and stuff like that, is going to be really hard to find. I mean, maybe it's possible, but she's got absolutely no interest to live in Canada for this reason. And let me tell you, a lot of Chinese people, one of the most common questions I get here is, 习惯了没有? Am I used to the food here? Am I okay here? And it's actually changed to the opposite, where when I go back to Canada, I feel out of place. and I'm missing the food here. It's the complete opposite now, where I've integrated so much here that I'd have an extremely difficult time reintegrating back into Canada.
Wow.
For food, culture, everything.
Wow. One of your viewers recommended the app Yummy Buy. So I'm going to download the app. That's why I was looking down on my phone. I'm going to download the app and see if they have Ludo Go. I'm going to get my Ludo Go.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so amazing how
there's another one that Benji shared here. I don't know if you can see the comments on my channel, but
I see it.
Yeah, he says search on Amazon, and he's given you a Chinese name here to search.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I could go to Missoula. That's not a bad idea. Thank you for that. I forgot about Missoula. I always think of Missoula as like a Japanese place, but yeah, they should have Ludo Go.
Yeah.
Man.
But you know what, man? I gotta meet some friends for dinner soon. So I gotta get. We've been going on for 3 hours.
Yeah,
This feels
this
like
is
this
great.
has just flown by. We should definitely do this again. Like to
Let's do
everybody
this
who's
again
on-
soon.
Yeah, for everybody who's online, this was literally a last minute decision. This wasn't planned. I sent Jerry a WeChat message. I said, "Hey, I've got my laptop at Taps. Do you want to just log on and just talk about anything?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure. I just finished drawing." You're learning drawing. You said when you sent me that message.
I was learning. Guys, don't expect much, okay? But I've been learning how to draw for a week, so I've been learning how to draw, and then I just checked my phone, and Daniel was available, and we just said, "Let's do it."
So, do you got anything? Do you got anything you can show us from your learning so far?
Not yet, man. I mean, I've been learning how to draw eyes and ears and stuff like that. So, nothing that interesting. But if you go to Jerry Learns to Draw, you can find my Instagram, Jerry Learns to Draw.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, it'll be a work in progress, but I think I'll leave this. There's some people here who want to continue watching this. I said I was going to move it to private afterwards because this was just a random chat, but I think I'll leave it up for a bit, and maybe you can too, and we can let some people see the video. But this was good. Cool. I'm glad you had time.
Yeah. And for viewers that are in LA, maybe we could all meet in Missoula sometime. I totally forgot Missoula existed. So yeah, let's all go meet in Missoula, to all viewers in LA and Santa Monica and stuff.
Yeah. Let me finish this off with putting your channel on the screen again. There we go. For people who are here, you can look up Jerry there. And for people who are in LA, definitely look him up. We've got some people coming in. Thank you, Hanlu Liu. Said that we should do these talks more often. So let's think about doing this again, man. This is fun.
Definitely. This was so fun. I'm so glad we finally got to do this, man. I knew it would be a good conversation. Like, guys, for those of you who stumble on this later, you'll probably see this on my channel, guys. Like Daniel, go to Daniel's channel, man. I like him. He's a good dude who likes to, he integrates into China, right? That's what matters.
All right, man. Well, let's wrap it up here, and we'll do this again sometime soon.
Cool. Do I press end broadcast, or do you press end broadcast?
I'm going to do it. I'll do end broadcast, and we can wrap up after that. So see you guys, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Okay. See you guys.
All right.